Perfect sync. So good morning to you again.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm good. Well, I would like you to introduce yourself first.
Okay.
Hmm?
I'm Joe Martin, also known as the Ascension Guide on YouTube and other places. But yeah, I just started a YouTube channel back in, I guess, August now, and have been trying to help people with this ascension process for the past few months.
It's very interesting. I just talked to my friend about it yesterday, and he's not into spirituality and he doesn't understand anything. And he's talking about waking up, and he says that somewhere he's heard that about 10,000 people are waking up a day. Is that
Really?
true, you think?
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised, especially, it seems like every time I go on Facebook or something now, it seems like more and more people are, I don't want to say using buzzwords, but that's kind of what it is, where it's like, kind of some of these spiritual, keyword,
Starting,
yeah,
right?
with star seed or, something like that. And you're like, oh, that's interesting to hear somebody that you really didn't expect, anything out of like that to, start seeing things. But yeah, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me. I've heard, um, as of late that the darkness is kind of in panic mode because this how many people are waking up so quickly. So yeah, it really wouldn't surprise me at all.
In Ascension Guy, why did you call yourself Ascension Guy? So what exactly would you do for people?
Well, I guess I should probably go back a little bit so that it makes sense. But in July, I went to do a past life regression, as you know, and through that past life regression, I started channeling Archangel Ariah, and
And what sparked that interest in you doing that kind of regression?
like I've always, been sort of interested in, since like 2012, I've been starting my awakening process, I guess, like you're referring to. So, my curiosity's always been there with just about
That's the key
anything.
word, the
Yeah,
curiosity. So
right.
how
Yeah.
did you start your awakening? That would be the curiosity. So what did you start being curious about?
Are you talking about originally in
The
my first?
2012, going back there, yeah.
So I don't know if it was 2012, 2013, somewhere around that time frame. I know it was the Boston Marathon bombing, that really things just didn't make sense, like the response and just looking at it from somebody who wasn't a conspiracy minded person or anything like that, just nothing was adding up. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, this seems completely, I don't know, it just didn't make sense to me. So I started doing a little digging and then obviously found myself in a rabbit hole going into the conspiracy theory world. And
And then
yeah,
one
and
after the other, you start exploring all of these topics.
right. And of
Okay.
course, in the conspiracy theory world, there are a ton that are, completely bogus garbage, and then there's a ton that are completely true. So, it's that learning and discerning. And of course, at first, you kind of get sucked in, and you're like, everything's a conspiracy, and everything's this, and and then you start to kind of realize that there's both sides that are playing you, and so you got to be discerning and stuff. But um, once I was in the kind of conspiracy world, I come across certain things that kind of overlapped with the spiritual world, frequencies, and how that kind of, with music and stuff that I play, and how that all kind of ties together. And then that kind of started drawing me over to more the spiritual side. And then I started watching, I think we talked about before, that Spirit Science, that was on YouTube.
Okay, so
And that was
can I pause for a little bit? Can you explain more about the frequency? What does it have to do between our world and the spiritual world?
Well, everything is frequency. So everything is energy and it's all vibrating at a certain frequency. So what gives us the illusion of physical matter or the sound or everything else is all just frequency at a certain vibration.
So that was the knowledge that you gain.
Yeah. And I'd kind of had an idea, through like tuning with music and stuff like that. You kind of, this much about frequency and vibration and stuff like that. But then once you start going deeper and you start to realize we're all just atoms vibrating at a certain frequency, and that's what creates, this illusion that we see. And then you start to, kind of think, well, how far does that go? And it's like, it seems like it's infinite in both directions. The frequencies go smaller infinitely and larger infinitely. So, but then you realize that that's all creation, that's all matter, that's everything is this vibration of energy. And
So when did you then started um, connecting the numbers you said?
you talking about like the frequency numbers?
No, you said you started digging more into frequency, and then you went into spirit
Oh, well, how that kind of
numbers.
how that connected, you mean? So once I started realizing, um, how frequency affects our body through, music is a huge example. Most people don't even realize the effect that it's, the
Can you talk about
vibration.
that a little bit? Just a little
Sure.
bit.
Yeah, sure. I mean, even when you look at a guitar and you pluck the string, if you watch it, it's just vibrating up and down at a certain frequency. And a frequency is just how many times it oscillates back and forth per second. And then it's measured in hertz. So the way the frequency works is that you hit the sound, it creates the vibration, and that's what you feel, and then the harmonics of the sounds and everything else playing together, but it creates a physical vibration that you actually, and that's what people feel when they go to like EDM concerts and stuff like that, when they stand in front of the bass and you're actually feeling that vibration, and that's happening. It's just on a more subtle level that you're interpreting through your ears, and it does happen through your body as well. But those frequencies can literally like reprogram your DNA in
And are they
software.
okay? That's what you kind of hooked me on already. The frequency can be bad or good for
Yeah,
us,
yeah,
healthy or unhealthy.
yeah.
And can you talk about that a little bit? What is the good frequency? What is not so good frequency?
So what are known as Salfagio tones? So if you take the frequency, for example, 432 hertz, which is what I tune my instruments to, instead of 440, which was agreed upon in like 1939, I think, in the world. But 4 + 3 + 2 = 9. So if you add up the three numbers or four numbers, however many numbers it is in the frequency, if they equal 3, 6, or 9, then they're part of a solfeggio frequency.
Right.
If they are not, then they are a disharmonic frequency that doesn't necessarily vibe with our body as well.
Does that correlate somehow with why exactly the number is 369 with nature?
Yeah. Well, if you have ever studied Nikola Tesla at all, he talks about the, magnificence, the 3, 6, and 9, and how, they're the keys to the universe. And if you look, a 45-degree angle, 4 + 5 is 9. A 360 degrees, 3 + 6 is 9, or 3 + 6 + 0 is 9. All of the shapes all equal 9. All of everything equals, or
But that's where
360.
it comes from.
Yeah.
That's why these
And
numbers.
I mean, it's the basic building blocks of, I believe, from my understanding, I think it's kind of the, numbers are the universal language that's kind of built to, use our, to create the code for what this illusion is. And, part of that's through the harmonic frequencies and disharmonic frequencies and whatever else. But the 3, the 6, and the 9, and like you said, and how that kind of creates, circles, squares, all the different shapes, and how they all equal with all their different degrees and the ratio. So it's all tied in together, and how it creates this. And then so there's the conspiracy theory. I have no idea if it's true or not. Just gonna throw out there what I've researched. It was Joseph Goebbels, and he was a Nazi scientist who was looking into like reprogramming DNA and how to create, like disharmonic, and where people just felt agitated and aggressive and all these different things all the time. And so they proposed to change the natural tuning frequency from a solfeggio tone, which there are multiple. 432 is just one of them. There's 528. There's a bunch of different ones that you could use. I believe that original tuning was, I think there was a few different ones that they used, but they were, more harmonic.
I'm not sure if it's 528. That's the angelic, like,
528 is a healing frequency, but
right.
it's too high of a pitch for, so if you tried to tune, so 256 is C on 528. So it's just a math game of figuring out, where which frequency correlates with which note. So tuning into 528, you'd actually tune to 256, if that makes sense. So it's kind of a,
Yes.
depending on
So
which note
that's
you're
probably
tuning to.
not the foundation.
Kind of, yeah. So understanding all that, and then that kind of got me into, learning a little bit more about the spiritual side and different things, and how, how all creation, like I said, is vibration, and then it correlates with science, and quantum physics, and then
And then
these
you were saying
things.
that during the Second World War, Goebbels started distracting people with these negative frequencies.
Right. And like I said, I don't know if all that's true or not. I've read the
It is
same
actually, it
information.
is,
Yeah.
yes. Because
And
they say that actually all our instruments are tuned by this frequency.
Yeah, it's 440 hertz. That's the natural. That's the
And that
natural.
that can be measured. So I think it's true.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it definitely, and if you look into, I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce it. I don't know if it's cymatics or kymatics. It's
Yes.
Cymatics.
Yes.
So you can look that up, and they actually take like salt and they'll pour it on a table and play a certain frequency. And you'll see when it's in the Salfagio tones that it creates these beautiful geometric shapes that are very distinct. And then when it's in the disharmonic frequencies, it creates a much more blurred type of geometric shape. So,
Right. And then I'm just going to step in. It's very interesting that they started taking these shapes into architecture.
right.
So we're actually not building in the frequencies of what appeals to us, but many times the buildings and facilities, let's say, are in a shape that are distracting to our senses or distract full into our senses. I don't know.
Yeah.
So basically, yeah, that transfers into all other fields,
Right.
not just music, but it can be architecture, public spaces, right? And that is anything that is our senses that you can touch, that you can feel, that you can smell, and all is all about the shapes and the frequency. So many people started making perfumes, or let's say some kind of fragrances,
Hmm.
or healing herbal essences or something like that, where they input this energy into it, the solfeggio frequency. Yes.
Yeah. And like you were saying with that, they call them the sacred geometry and stuff that, they design these buildings with and everything. And they're supposed to, like you said, not only is it, I mean, it's cool to look at, obviously, but it also helps the vibration, to
Harmonize
resonate the way and it's
the
supposed
spaces.
to. Yeah, instead of
Right.
like, they say that four, square walls like you see behind me and stuff are like the worst thing you can have as far as energy flow. Like if you're into feng shui or things like that, it should be round, and things where the energy can swirl and, go.
Oh, right. Like round edges, the
Right.
sharp edges aren't good for us,
Yeah, they say
which
that
is
energy
very
just stops and
interesting.
gets stuck.
Right. Yes, because the corners, and that's how our neurons are as well. Like our brain, when we see the map of neurons, they're very curved, right? So they're not sharp. And the neuro art, the people that are painting, it's a healing modality. I'm not sure if you've heard about that.
No.
So you paint basically intuitively through your senses. So you pour out your feelings, for example, if it's anxiety that you have, right? So you would draw in that frequency of anxiety, and then you are curving the edges into, or the sharp corners, right, into neuron-like shapes. So you round them up, and so then it supposedly starts transforming your feelings. So for example, from anxiety, you go into peace, for example, about if you have some anxiety about, I don't know, some kind of situation in your life, and it creates very beautiful paintings. I'm gonna show you later. I can
Yeah,
send it to you. So that's what I've done, and there are practitioners. So this guy started it in 2014. He's Russian painter, and he started this idea, and it really works. So
that's interesting.
yes, yes. So it's you meditate through that, you heal yourself
Yeah.
through that, and then actually it makes so much sense.
And just a
Going
creative
back to what
aspect is
you
cool
just
too.
talked about. Yes.
Yeah. Well, and
Mhm.
it's interesting because I've heard before too, and like I said, I don't know where, you know, certain things are just are what they are, or were intended to be conspiracy type things. I don't know. Sometimes I wonder, but like I've even heard that like water, why there's 90-degree angles in pipes, the water doesn't flow that way normally. So that it
That
affects
affects
our
the water
water and stuff
too.
like that.
Yes.
So
Oh, wow.
like I said, I don't know if that's, I always question whether things were just to save money or good intentions or this sort of thing, that ended up being bad, or if things were intentionally like, hey, we know this is going to screw with them, let's do it. So I don't know
No,
where
for
that line
sure.
is.
We have to question.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, but anyway, going back to this spiritual awakening, that sort of thing led me from one thing to another, and then just kind of on the rabbit hole, and then things just as they seem to just pop up at the right time when you're ready to understand, you're ready to learn, and
True.
they
When you're
just
ready.
kind of, yeah.
It's a good
So
one.
I was pretty well evolved, I guess, by the time like I knew what channeling was. I was kind of my wife had kind of gotten me into it probably about a year before I started actually channeling. So I was pretty aware of it. And then we went to meet the lady who she took her Reiki class from. And when we were there, I just randomly was like, hey, do you do past life regressions? And she was like, I can. And I was like, all right, let's set something up. I was just curious more than anything. And through the past life regression, I started channeling Archangel Ariah. And that's pretty much when my entire life is turned upside down in a good way. Um,
Right.
but
So what was in that regression? What was coming for you at first?
so first,
Did it all started all of a sudden just you said, sorry, which one was it? Archangel
Ariah.
Ariah. So um did he come just like that, or from the beginning was it somehow intertwined in your past life?
So as far as I remember it, I went through one past life. I was in like the Revolutionary War, and then I was in another, like I was a
Revolutionary War in the States?
yes.
Wow, the
Um,
South and North?
no, that's the Civil War.
The War.
The Revolution, the first British against the British back in 17.
Okay, I see.
So I was in that life. Then I was in a Viking life, and
Where were you when you were biking?
uh, I remember we were on a boat and we were sailing somewhere, and I remember seeing us like slaughter a bunch of people, and we just kind of thought of them as like bugs.
Oh,
We didn't really think anything
there
of
you go. Okay, so you didn't really know much about that. That would be interesting to say
Yeah.
that, yes, I was once biking.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. And it's interesting when you go and you kind of see because you kind of experience, I feel like, in a way that you go through certain events that happened in that lifetime, or you're like, it's almost like you're a fly on the wall, like you're observing something. At least that's how it was for me. I don't know how other people's past life regressions have went, but I was just kind of seeing myself, and just it was going through different scenarios, and I saw us like on a ship, like we were going on a raid or something. And then I don't know if it was maybe England or somewhere, we went and slaughtered a whole bunch of people. I don't know. And then it was showing just like I was seeing in like a great like hall where they're drinking afterwards and kind of partying, whatever, and singing.
Really?
And but you could just kind of feel the emotion of how they didn't really think of the other people as people. It was just like bugs. I think that's
You
even,
had to get rid of them. You had
yeah.
to do
Well,
something
they were
about
just kind of in our way of like, we wanted that stuff and you're in our way, so we got to kill you.
it.
That's
Wow.
just kind of how basic it was. There was no like a thought or emotion, but it was interesting because myself, I guess, I kind of had this like, as I got older, started to appreciate the other people and realize that there was a lot to learn from, other cultures, and that they weren't just like bugs. They
Of
were,
course.
actual people that you could learn. So it was kind of cool to see the progression from thinking of them that way, and then towards the end of my, life, realizing
Well,
that there was a lot more
because
to offer.
yes, for sure. It's when we are wondering why in the world some nations still have war, why they are still at war, for what reason, when you can live this kind of life that we have in the States or I'm in Canada, and then all of a sudden you hear news from Yemen, for example, right? And they're killing each other just because nothing, maybe.
Yeah.
And for them, it's the major thing,
Yeah.
just like you
Well,
experienced it. So you can understand people. And that is a good thing that you have the compassion where they all talk about. Just have compassion for the less evolved people,
yeah.
because you were once there too. And
Yeah.
obviously you're going to understand that for them it's nothing. And when they're trying to explain how does that work in the animal kingdom, right? So why does the lion slaughter maybe other cubs, because he needs to procreate his own in this herd, right?
Mhm.
That's exactly it. That's the calling of a nature, right? That's what
Yeah.
the evolution is about.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's hard for some people to kind of, wrap their mind
Hard.
around that sort of thing, and, say, hey, that's, how life is. And,
Exactly.
we talked about before, we're having that kind of zoomed out view of Earth and being able to just say it is what it is. That's just kind of how things go. And, it's hard because, you see a cub being slaughtered and you're like, oh, it's terrible. I don't want to see that stuff. But then, it's kind of that's just how it goes here. It
That's
is
what
what
it
it
is.
is.
Yeah, it's a planet Earth, and we have a little bit of everything. Yes,
Yeah, yeah, good, bad, and
still.
indifferent. Yeah, yeah.
So, do you know the time when you were Viking doing that? Like what, around, I don't know, 12 or I don't know,
I think it was
one century?
800s, late 800s, I want to say, something like that, mid 800s, somewhere around there.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, I'm not exactly sure. So I went from
It's
that
just for the
life.
point of reference. Like today we are in the 21st century and you were slaughtering people in like the 8th century, right? So yeah,
Right.
it takes centuries to ascend to this level.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting, like I said, the kind of lessons that you learn at those times. And, it makes me understand kind of how, the soul evolves more than it's just like, thinking that we're this human that's evolving, because it's like I learned those lessons, back then about, and in this lifetime, I've never had that feeling of, oh, that other person's just a bug or, anything like that. So it's just
Right.
interesting how our soul kind of evolves through those lifetimes and learns those lessons in different ways. And um, to be able to come to those realizations, throughout that lifetime of, I was wrong, I thought it was this way. And I think that it's kind of a microcosm of our entire evolution in a way, because it's like our whole entire lives we're taught one thing, and we're taught that this is that and that is this, and we have to think this way and do that. And then we get to a certain point where we start to awaken and realize that all of that is wrong, and that we have to like unlearn everything that we ever learned. And some people, I feel like a lot of it is a choice not to. They would rather believe that they're right than understand and admit that they've been fooled. So
That's the free will.
yeah, yeah.
So that's very interesting when you are kind of giving this analogy about you. Maybe it could be a good example of a peer pressure, right? When you are in your, I don't know, tribe with these companions, you don't question that you're doing something wrong to other people.
Right. Well,
That
and I
seems
think
very normal.
exactly. And I think the problem and I'm sure everybody's done it too, where you grew up in a house, and where whatever way you grew up, you assumed that everybody else grew up that same way. And then at some point in your life, you go out in the real world and you're like, oh, you grew up completely different than I did.
Right?
And
Think differently? Really?
yeah. And so I think that that's a little bit of, I call it like small town mindedness, where people grow up in a small town, live in a small town their whole life, and think that's how the
Like a
whole world
syndrome, right?
is. Yeah.
Small town
And
syndrome.
right. And they think that's how the entire world is. And I think it's similar to what you were just saying, where you're in that tribe, you're in that culture, and that's how everything is. You don't even know any different. You don't even have any, and how could you, if that's all you know? So that's why I think it's so important, to travel, even nowadays, to travel and
Yes,
experience
yes.
other cultures and other things, and
Courage.
realize that,
Yeah.
everybody's different. Everybody does things different. Nobody's right. Nobody's wrong. It's just their way of doing things.
Right, that's right. So it only takes courage, to go beyond yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I want to go back also. You were saying, okay, so you had this life, but do you know your karma from that life? Because that can be also very tricky. Like if you are un, like you don't know your intentions are wrong, yeah, and it's let's say ignorance. How does the karma excuse your ignorance, you
Um,
know how that was resolved, from your past lives? Like, okay, we do some atrocious act against other people. How does this karma now play out? That would be for your evolution, obviously, but
So if I'm understanding karma correctly, because I feel like a lot of people have this like sort of what goes around comes around idea of karma, where it's like if you do something bad, then you're going to get punished for it. And
cause and effect.
I don't necessarily think that that's how karma works. What I think karma is there are lessons that we have to learn. And if you don't learn that lesson, it's going to come back harder and faster and harder and faster until you do learn it. So I think me having the realization that these were people and I could learn from them, they could learn from me. There was this, mutual beneficial exchange that could happen instead of just treating them like bugs or whatever. I think learning that is the lesson that had to be learned, rather than atoning for maybe killing a whole bunch of people. And, like, I think that's kind of like the religious punishment aspect that we've kind of been, indoctrinated with, where it's like, oh, you did this, now you have to be, you have to atone. And it's like, I don't think it necessarily works like that. I think there's lessons, and you either learn them or you don't learn them. And if you don't learn them, that's your karma. Is you have to keep repeating until you do learn
And
that
that's
lesson.
karma on its own. Yes.
Yeah, and I don't think it's like I have to go and be slaughtered in 50 lifetimes to get, retribution from, or whatever. I don't think it works like that at all. I think it's, I learned the lesson of that, that's not right. I wasn't doing things the right way. And I think that's what all karma is. And I think that's what our lifetimes, when we go through these different lessons, if you notice, a lot of people have reoccurring themes in their lives that keep happening over and over and over again. They're not learning. They're
They're
not getting the
learning.
message. And the sooner they figure out that message and learn the lesson and stop doing the things that are creating that cyclical loop, that thing will stop.
It's not
So,
always easy.
oh no, not at all. Well, and you have to be, the awareness, first of all, to even
Yes.
understand what the, is
Okay,
causing.
so now the awareness, where does it come from? Does it come from you, or does it have some kind of divine intervention? Like, oh, I'm going to unlock this kind of neuron there, and it's going to expand his consciousness. And then he's going to realize that, oh, hold on, I've been doing this wrong.
I think it can be both. I think one thing, if more people, and here's what I think it is in a nutshell. So we live in this society that is constantly bombarded with information, talking, noise, whatever it is, TV. You never sit in quiet and reflect upon your day. I mean, few people do. It's work, come home with the kids, eat dinner, watch some TV, go to sleep. There's no meditation, there's no reflecting on what you did or didn't do. So I think one thing that I've always been really good at is reflecting upon my actions, reflecting on what I've done, and learning the lesson from that. And I think if more people did that, I don't think you need divine intervention. I think that what you need to do is be able to step out of your body and look at your actions objectively, look at your thoughts objectively, and say, was I right or was I wrong? And, obviously there's right and wrong is, your own
Still
personal
subjective. Like,
perception. Yeah.
whatever
But
there is something wrong, you still feel it from inside. That does
exactly.
not.
Well, I'm saying like my wrong could be different from your wrong. So whatever resonates with
Yes.
you that is right or wrong, then I would say that's what you should go by. 100 years ago, what's right and wrong were 100 and completely different, than they are today.
Yes.
So it's what's right and wrong is very much subjective, but whatever feels right or wrong to you, if you feel you handled the situation properly and you're proud of the way you did it, then be proud of the way you did it. If you feel like you need to make an apology, then make an apology.
That's what they
But
say when they say you didn't know any better.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And so I think that being able to self-reflect and, kind of be objective and say, were my actions just, was I acting out of this or this, and just be able to reflect on it. And even if you don't apologize or you don't do this or you don't do that, if long as you learned, and you
Yeah.
change your behavior for the future, then I think that that's the most important thing. Then you're learning the lesson, and then you're not going to have to repeat those same things over and over again.
Or sometimes it can be other people bring that issue to your attention.
Oh,
That's like,
sure. Yeah.
so that can be relationships break up.
Yeah.
That
And
is
that could be sort of a divine people could call it that way too. I mean, I think that there's a lot that could be kind of,
true. True. That can be
so
also basically, oh, that's what was supposed to happen at this exact time of my life.
yeah.
Cool. So if you can go back to the regression, so you viewed your life as a Viking, and then
So yeah, I had the Viking life, the Revolutionary War life, and then I don't totally know exactly what was happening, but I feel like I was seeing Ariah's perspective.
so
Uh,
going from a man at war to seeing an archangel.
well, I didn't see them. So that's what I mean. I kind of feel like I was experiencing their perspective. All I
Okay,
saw
so
was
it comes
like,
through you.
yeah. So all
Okay.
I saw was like white energy everywhere. And I would see, it was interesting because it was like I was on a cloud and I would just see like hands reaching up through the clouds. And like, I just knew that that meant that they needed help and they were asking for help. And it was just kind of,
Sorry, who is
uh,
asking for help?
I'm assuming since Archangel Ariah is my guardian angel, I'm assuming they're also other people's guardian angels. So I think the way they made it sound after that when they were explaining things is, as you may or may not know, so angels, your guardian angels, whatever, they cannot intervene unless you ask. So, which you see how complicated that could be if you don't even know they exist.
Mhm.
But protecting you and doing those sort of things is one thing. That's their job, guarding you. But if you want something or you want to ask for something, if you don't specifically ask in the moment and be specific about what you're asking for, then they're not going to help you.
And so the reaching hands were the hands of people.
I'm assuming people that were asking for help. So
I mean, it sounds like a movie because there was a movie. It was Bruce Almighty, actually.
oh yeah.
Experienced himself as this god, and he was hearing all kinds of prayers from all around the world, and that's how you are talking about it too. So
Yeah.
true. And can you give a specific example of you maybe asking for help from some entity, maybe Archangel, and you got it? So that really it works. I mean, we don't need proof, but it's just like, yeah, it did happen to me. This is a good example of it.
Okay. I've had quite a few. I'm trying to think of something that would stand out, or see, I'm not great at like the asking part. I mean, I ask for help and help, connecting and those sort of things. But I'm trying to think which is like a specific, because there's been so many things that have kind of since July and through the different channeling sessions that we've done where the proof has been beyond this, beyond a shadow of a doubt. So it's kind of like I don't ask for those proof things. I guess I could give you an example of
No, I mean, so before you actually started with this regression where you got all the information, then it sparked your entire new life, right? So before in your life, did you experience something that you really asked for? It was kind of like not even in a prayer, and it happened.
So interesting. As I said, I play music and stuff, and my whole thought process, career mind, I had shifted. I was going to do music, and that was, and I had kind of been on that same path since I was a kid, and then I deviated and went and did football and some other things and military and whatever. But I was like, all right, I'm back on the path. I'm doing music. That's my life goal. I got it all figured out. And as I'm like writing songs and doing certain things, this was before I started channeling. I was telling my wife and I was telling the guy, I play music with, I'm like, I feel like these songs just like coming to me. Like, I feel like something's sending them to me. Like I just hear this stuff in my head. And then I feel like I'm like getting them from somewhere. And
those would be the downloads, we call them today.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a little bit of both. Yeah. Downloads. And then like they were sometimes where it's just like, they're literally here, go do this. And I would be, so not understanding what was happening, I didn't understand that I'd been channeling my whole life. I didn't understand that other voice in my head was not my own, trying to divide the distinction and, now understanding how they communicate and what they sound like and different things. And I'm still learning, the difference, but.
So you were doing that unconsciously?
Yeah.
But now you've been revealed all these things.
Right. Yeah.
So you are making strong connection. Awesome.
Yeah.
So you've been channeling your entire life. Cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like, it's not like how it has been now where I'm, got a 300 plus page book out of it, but it was, I'm assuming now looking back at like the little guidance things or the things like, hey, you shouldn't be here, just little things like that. Like, the little.
Did you always listen?
I would say 95% of the time, probably. I mean, there's always that, yeah, there's the, the bad decision making every once in a while, or the peer pressure that you get caught up in, stuff like that naturally happens. But I've always been
it
pretty
didn't
good
steer you anywhere wrong. So that's a great thing.
Yeah, that inner guidance, I've been pretty, especially, you get that feeling in your stomach and it's like, I shouldn't be here, shouldn't do this,
Okay, so that's a good thing to maybe pause it and explain, because that's what a lot of people are looking for, right? Not everybody's as lucky as you. Some people done wrong decisions one after the other. So what is it that we should listen to? Is it our mind, our heart, our guts? What is it actually? How does that all, how is that all connected?
It's hard for me to answer that question because I don't know what you feel, or,
Very
and
natural for
the
you.
way they explained it to me, and when I say they, I'm talking about Ariah because they come in female and male form, so I just refer to them as they. But what were we just talking about? I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought.
That's okay. That's okay. So
Oh,
how
the
does
way
that
people
work
feel
for
things.
like someone
Yeah,
who does not know,
yeah, yeah,
maybe
yeah.
is lost in life right now, what to do? Like what kind of guidance to get? I'm not talking to my higher self. I don't have any revealings. I don't see that something is speaking to me. What is it that I can improve?
So you probably are. I'll say that first, and you probably just don't realize it.
You mean you as speaking to the audience generally?
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
probably getting messages, you're probably getting signs, you're probably getting feelings, you're probably getting certain things that you just disregard or think that are your own.
So those
Um,
those would be the things to look for.
yeah.
Numbers.
Synchronicities, sure. If you're seeing, and a lot of people like, oh, I don't see 1111. And it's like some of my synchronicities are 16 and 18 and, just random, numbers. So, and they mean something to me personally, but it doesn't have to be 1111 or 1212. There's random, if you see the same number every day, and it could be like mine is, like I said, 18. So I see 9, 18, 7, 18, 6, all the different 18s throughout the day. I see them
So
all the
it's
16s.
just to see the pattern again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, so one thing you can do, if you do see those numbers, I think I told you this. If you see the same one repeating constantly, go look it up. Go look up angel number, whatever it is, blah, blah, blah. And Joanne Scribes is a website that I trust, their messages. But whatever one you're drawn to, if you feel, drawn to a different one, then they're probably trying to give you a different message. So, kind of you have to use your intuition a little bit. But if you start seeing a repeating number, go look up what it means and see what message they're trying to send you. And I guarantee you it's going to resonate with whatever is going on in your life. So just be aware, pay attention to those things, pay attention to, like I said, your gut feelings. You get that pit in your stomach that something doesn't feel right. It's telling you like this isn't right, And so the other thing that's kind of interesting about listening to your guidance and what they've explained to me is, so different things are going to feel different ways. What resonates with you may feel different than the way it resonates with me. And another part of it is we have to be open to what they're telling us. So
Mm.
they're not always going to tell you what you want to hear. And that means that you're not always going to accept the message or accept their guidance in the same way. So for instance, if they tell you to start eating only fruit or something to help your diet and you love eating cheeseburgers, that's probably not going to vibe the same way it would as if they said, hey, you're going to get $1 million, right? It's going to feel different because you are conflicted with that emotion. You feel
Right.
like I still want to do this and you're telling me to change my life is different than here's this nice thing for you. So it's kind of, so it's going to feel different to everybody. And some people might resonate with that and say, oh, I've been saying I need to eat fruit. All right, let's do it. So it's like everybody's resonation with the answers that they get could feel differently depending on how they feel about that answer, really. So you kind of have to learn to, one thing you just ask and listen for what answers you get, listen,
And
very
obey,
simple.
would you say?
I wouldn't say obey. I would say, as they tell me all the time, there's things that you should do and there's things that you shouldn't do, and there's things that you can do. And just because you can doesn't mean you should. Um, but they also say you have free will to do what you want. It's your life. You do what you want to do. And,
Mm.
a lot of things, one thing I want to say for sure is I feel like in this spiritual community and religious world and a lot of these things, there is so much of self-deprivation. You have to take this away, you have to stop eating, you can't eat meat, you have to be vegan, you have to do this, you have to meditate for 4 hours a day and do yoga.
Very
No,
true.
you
We
don't.
impose these rules on ourselves,
Right.
thinking that this is good for us.
And now that's interesting what you just said, because if you say I can't do this because I don't meditate for 4 hours a day, then that will be true,
So
because
it's
that's
like
what you
you
believe.
block yourself.
Right.
Um,
So be careful what you believe and be careful what you say, because your subconscious is always listening. So if you believe that you can't do these things without doing X, Y, or Z, then that is what will be true. If you believe that you can achieve these things all on your own because you're a divine being, then that will be true also. So it's very important to remember the distinction of whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're always right.
that's very important what you just said. Yes, very important. So the resistance, why do we have resistance?
Oh, I mean, 8 million different reasons, but there's
Just like in human nature, I mean, why do people resist something?
Well, I think that's what I was going to say. I mean, you can have resistance because it's uncomfortable, because it's new. You can have resistance because you don't necessarily agree with what the answer is. You're limited, especially if you're somebody who can't take a zoomed out view of things. If you can't look at yourself in the third person and be objective, it's going to be very hard for you to accept a lot of these things. And what they always tell me is they can see the bigger picture. We see right what's in front of us, right? So losing your job may seem like a tragedy, and you're all broken up about it, and your ruins your life, and you're depressed and all these different things, and then 2 weeks later you get a way better job with more money that you're happier at. So it's like you can curse them and say, oh, why did I lose my job, and why am I unhappy, and why are these things not happening? But they knew that in 2 weeks you're getting a better job that you're going to be happier at, right? So it's kind of being able to see that bigger picture for us too, and them saying, yeah, that might feel like it sucks, but it's just opening up a window for something better to come in.
Well, in a better case,
Yeah.
but then there's lesson with money. Okay, you lost the job just because you have to learn how to maybe be without money a little bit.
Yeah. Well, and there's so many different layers to that as well. And it could be the fact that, and right now, just as I lost my job and other people are losing their jobs, these jobs aren't vibing with who we are. They're not
Anymore. Yeah.
conducive to the new world that's coming. And like I was in public education. That's one of the worst, fields that you could, as far as if you understand what's truly happening on both sides right now, and you understand what true school truly is and what it's used for, and to indoctrinate kids and to make them think a certain way, and you understand that side of it, public education is one of the worst places you could be. Public education, pharmaceuticals, all these other big societal structures that have been created to control and to manipulate are
That
crumbling.
functioning as foundations of our society, right?
Right.
Education system, healthcare system, yes.
Right. And those are all crumbling. And so a lot of people are finding themselves without jobs that are in this, spiritual community, or are here to help with this process. And they're finding themselves out of their jobs, whether it's because of the vaccine, or just, them not agreeing with this or that, or them just realizing that they're kind of a part of the problem by contributing to these things, and they don't want to be a part of the problem anymore. And whatever else it is that makes you realize, the system that has been put here to control and to manipulate us. And, I didn't want to be a part of it anymore. I saw it from the inside, what they were teaching kids and how it's just wrong. I mean, flat out. And
It's
I
also
know that,
obsolete. Like they are teaching from either textbooks or worksheets that are years old,
right.
and that doesn't even, not that it doesn't apply, but for the new world that we're coming into, what is more important for the kids, right? I
Well, and
mean,
I even ask what's important for us. How much stuff did any of us learn in school that we apply in our daily lives? I mean, it's almost irrelevant. I mean, other than basic math and some English, there's so many things that are just completely irrelevant that we go through.
yes, yes. So instead, they could be learning about the sacred geometry, right?
Right.
That would make a lot more sense and application into their lives or our lives altogether.
Well, this is what I would posture, and I would say you should learn what interests you.
No,
That's
absolutely.
what we're here to do. And if we started to create schools like that, where it's like, hey, what gets you going? What makes you want to jump out of bed and come to school every day? That's what you should
Maybe
be learning
you
about.
don't. Okay, so that's a good question actually for me. Is it good to be, we had subjects like math, language, biology, geography, and all that we had to go through, right? Whether you wanted or not, whether you were maybe capable in these areas, were curious in these areas or not. So if we create these schools that you are only going to concentrate on what you are curious about, and maybe keep evolving in that area, but isn't some foundation still good to have? Like, for example, for math, there are certain things like the Fibonacci sequence, the sacred geometry, right? And then
Much of
from
that
the
in school
arts,
did you
music,
learn?
but it's also math, it's the numbers. Sorry, go ahead.
I said, how much of that in school did you learn?
No, nothing, nothing. But if we change that math
No,
into
I
another
agree.
math,
There's,
like a curriculum,
yeah,
right? So is it still going to be okay for some kids to ideally, let's say we have this school, right? So the child is not interested in sacred geometry, right? which is the math subject, or could be the math subject, would you say, oh, it's okay, like you don't need it for your life? Or is it still like, it's good for you to learn them because that's basically one of the laws in the universe?
I think there has to be balance because yes, I agree that there are certain things, like I said, you should learn to read and you should learn to do basic math. Otherwise, those are things that are going to make you, if you don't
Well,
know how to do those
very
basic,
pragmatic, yes.
right. Now, learning, the Pythagorean theorem and some of the, calculus and some of this other stuff that has no bearing in anybody's life, like I think that's completely irrelevant. I think that induces stress and a bunch of other things that are unnecessary on people. But yeah, I think there needs to be a basic, but like one of the things you said is, do we have to make it where it's a 50 problem worksheet that you just go sit there and you do boring math problems for, or can you do it in a more fun way where you're learning math and music at the same time and how they interact, or you're learning about frequency and how it interacts with math, and you're learning multiple subjects at the same time and showing how that they interact with each other. Now that's a little bit more interesting. That's a little bit
And
more
now how can you
captivating.
apply it to your own life?
Right.
Because
Instead of here's
it's
this
yours,
worksheet.
different to mine.
Yes. So it's a whole system, systemic change that needs to happen. But I do agree. I think that there has to be some sort of basics. But I also think that everybody wants to learn the basics, especially when you're a kid. You want to learn a little bit of math, but it's when it starts to become where they send home 4 hours of math homework that you're just like, oh my God, I can't take this anymore. Or you have to go write a 7-page paper that's due tomorrow. Like that's the stuff that's just like, why are we doing this to people? That makes no sense to me. When do I ever have to write a 7-page paper that's due for work? Never. So it's like, what are we learning with that, other than stress? And there's no reason for homework. There should
Nonsense,
never
for
be
sure.
homework. The homework should be go be a kid and enjoy being a kid, or go play your sport or whatever it is. Like all of these things that we've just tied kids down, and we've taken all creativity and just put it into this tiny little box that we want them to be, these cookie cutter kids. And we've just completely destroyed creativity in society in a lot of ways.
Yeah, imagination for sure. That's when we can't even know how and what we desire.
Right. Yeah. And that's why there's so
So,
many people that are so confused and so lost and don't know what,
yes,
they don't even know what their hobbies are, what they like, because they've just been so distracted where it's do this homework for this many hours, then you go to bed, and then you do this, and then you go to work, and then this, and then there's no room for you to ever even be a human and express
yeah.
yourself.
So it's a good way to also pause on the language that we use, because you used a lot of times homework, right? It's a
Yeah.
work, but it's been changing to home practice actually.
Yeah. Well, and that's the other thing. Like, okay, you get music homework and you got to go home and practice your instrument for it. Oh, all right, cool. That's fun. I get to go play my instrument. Like that's awesome. So I think that, and this goes back to what we were talking about earlier. I don't know where it was, hey, we're trying to make kids smarter and it just devolved into this awful thing that it is, or if it was truly like, hey, let's make them depressed and angry and suicidal and do all these other things by making their lives
Well, I
completely
guess
miserable.
intentions were to alleviate the nation's, I don't know, intelligence level, I would say, like especially after the World War where everything was destroyed. So I think the intentions at the beginning were basically, yes, we need people to start learning, right?
Well, and that's what I mean. I always question though, is that what they tell us, or was there some
Well,
nefarious plan
obviously,
behind this? And I don't know. I'm not saying there was or wasn't. I just always question, like, was this good intentions that went bad, or was this nefarious from the start that people just thought was good intentions?
both, right?
Yeah,
I
right.
mean, again, um, me as a teacher, you as a teacher, you went to this public school system teaching with your best intentions, right? That's what you
Yeah.
were there to deliver. But yes, looking at it from from the broader perspective, the entire system was just using you
Yeah.
for the
And
bad
that
intentions. Yeah.
And that's a good point that I think you brought up, because it's not unique to the public education field, the medical field, all these
Yes.
different fields are the same thing, the law, all these, government, all these, a lot of these people go in with great intentions. Doctors want to go in to heal people, teachers want to go in to teach, blah, 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 blah. They just don't understand that their field has been completely hijacked, the medical field by the pharmaceutical field. They control the textbooks, they control the information that goes out. So now every doctor that goes through thinks they're doing their best when they write out a prescription and don't realize they're sentencing people to torture and death for the most part. So we have to understand that that's how this game works. It's compartmentalization. You have people with good intentions that are out there being the faces of this thing, and then you have people with bad intentions who are the ones telling the people how to run this thing, and they don't know the difference. And so it's waking up to that fact. It's waking up that it's not this giant conspiracy where every doctor on the planet is trying to make you sick. They think they're doing the right thing. That's what they're taught. That's what they're told. They just don't know the difference because they've been so distracted with their head in a book and learning and going to school and doing homework. And then they're in their med school, and then they're in their practice, and then they're in their field. And then it's like, when do you ever have time to sit there and reflect and think about things? Never.
And then you don't want to be the bad guy, right? So you want to obey a lot of times.
Exactly.
Anyways, that's a lot of like societal pressure, and we can go on and on why that happens.
Yeah.
But so now let's finish this one. Do you think that that's what we are here for? Let's say people like you and I, where we stepped out and we want to recreate the society. I mean, obviously I'm not going to do it by myself. I may have courageous ideas and intentions, and I can couple up with other people, and we can start creating our school, for example, right? If we want to.
Yeah.
Mentors and so on. But do you think that's what is, so going back to your regression, so you connected to Ariah and what that channeling was, or what it I don't know, presented for your life, for your new life, your new path? And did you find out that we're coming into the age when we sort of again, going back to you and I, but so many other people like us, are going to be those forerunners recreating the society?
Yeah, for sure.
So you can talk about that now.
Yeah. So I guess we'll kind of catch people up to speed who don't know. Right now, we're going through the vibrational change from the third dimension to the fifth dimension.
Why is it that we are going through the fourth and we're not going to be stuck there for a while?
I don't know the answer to that question. From what I gather, from kind of the way they've explained the fourth dimension to me, is almost like if the third dimension is the matrix, so to speak, the wake up, go to sleep, work and to pay taxes, that whole thing. Then the fourth dimension is kind of the awareness of all of that, from what I understand. And I know that there is an actual fourth dimension also, where fourth dimensional beings reside and that sort of thing. So I don't know, because sometimes I feel like they use the word dimensions and they're talking about two different things at times, I feel like, or other people are. I'm not exactly sure. So I'll just clear that. I don't know exactly. All I know is that we're going from the third to the fifth. And I believe that the fourth is kind of the awareness phase of all that, of people waking up and kind of, this right here, where it's, understanding that there's a lot more going on than they've, been shown before. It's sort of that, what is it? The light in the cave allegory. Have you ever heard that one?
Right. Yes.
Yeah. So
light in the cave. So yeah, we come out of the cave, from the darkness to the light.
Yeah. The people in the cave, for those of you who don't know, there's people in a cave that are watching the dancing pictures on the wall, and they think that's all life is. And it's really just the fire in the background of people, using cutouts or whatever. And it's basically the metaphor for what the world is. And then people crawl out of the cave and see that there's this whole world around them, and it's not just what they see on TV, essentially. But yeah, I think that's a little bit what's happening right now, is kind of that awareness, that awakening. People are starting to realize they've been manipulated, the contradictions that continuously pop up every single day in the news, people finding out that the news is controlled by the government, and it's all just propaganda. It's the greatest propaganda machine in the history of the world.
A lot of people are getting angry.
Yeah, well, that's the stage that we're headed into right now. I forget what was it, we just, on that vibrational chart that you and I talked about before, heading towards enlightenment, anger is the next phase. And I feel like with some of the things that are going to be coming out here pretty soon, I think that's where we're going to be headed pretty quickly. So I think we're right on.
It goes faster once you come out of certain level of not awareness, like consciousness. Then it goes faster until it stops again. I've heard about consciousness level 500, which is the wisdom or the reason.
Mm-hmm.
And people cannot pass that. So even Einstein couldn't pass that into the next, which is love, unconditional love. He couldn't pass that one.
You know why? I think
that much in his reason.
Right. I was just going to say logic.
Yep.
Logic.
Okay.
And I'm very much a logical thinking person as well, which is an interesting So that's part of the reason I was chosen, is what they told me, because of my skepticism and, logical thinking. So there's a lot that has to be overcome to
It's a
convince me
really
of
good thing then for you.
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
very happy then.
yeah.
Wow.
So for me to be able to kind of, and it's funny, like they said, sometimes like with the frequency and stuff, you fight logic with logic. Like that stuff all makes sense. It's all logical. And then if you can prove that, and that's real, and that we're going through this vibrational shift and all these other things, then you start to go down and say, okay, well, what else is real? What else is connected? And then there's the things that don't make sense. And
You
they
have to
told
pass them,
me, why does it have to?
right?
Why do things have to make sense to you to be real? They
Right.
don't. Nobody has to check with you. Nobody has to make sense to you. Things can be illogical.
Well,
Things don't
because
have to
of
make
our
sense.
ego, is it that our ego needs? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's our ego and it's our just human, aspects of needing to kind of be in control and understand things.
Right.
And our, how would you say it? Almost our, I guess maybe our ego getting in the way of, well, there's no way that there are things that happen that we can't understand. And it's like, our human capacity to understand isn't even, large enough to crack a lot of these things.
Yeah. I'll give you an
And
example that was very interesting. What comes to my mind was my former coworker was talking to her niece. So her niece was telling her, I don't know, let's say she was 7, right? 7-year-old would tell her that I saw unicorns, and she's like, "Oh yeah, it's fine, but there are no unicorns, right? Need to make sure that there are no unicorns, right? There are unicorns."
yeah, well, and that's what's hard for people to understand. And that's one thing that I've channeled too is, the only person who said that those things in movies weren't real was you. They never said that that stuff wasn't real. They never said that we couldn't do those things. We just assumed that we can't.
That's right.
So us understanding that the only limitations that we have are those that are self-imposed, and we self-impose a lot of limitations on ourselves. How many times a day do you hear somebody say, I can't do this or I can't do that? Well, you
I
better
do
damn
that.
sure believe that they can't do that.
Yeah.
And if they say they can do that, and they
That's
believe that
what
they can do that,
you caught me last time, yes.
yeah,
The first time.
yeah,
You caught me the first time. So you were the skeptic, you were the doubter,
yeah.
you were really logical, and okay, so you
And I still
channeled
am for the most part.
through hypnosis. Sorry?
I said I still am for the most part, but I'm coming around.
I mean, it's not gonna just disappear
Right.
overnight, for
Yeah.
sure. You are, though, having experiences. So in that regression,
Hmm.
mhm,
Yeah. And
what happened after you view the past lives? They just said, okay, now you're ready, and this is what it's going to be for you.
so as I was channeling the past lives, about, I want to say maybe halfway through, maybe a little less than halfway through, Ariah just came through and they kind of took over and started speaking through me. And it was interesting because, if I don't know if anybody's channeled before or anything, but the energy is insane. Like the amount of energy that like my whole body was just like, I felt like I was shaking like this, like I was shivering the whole time because the energy was coming through, and like the way I would breathe, and it was real like labored, and like I was really having to, so the first sessions were, got a little bit of information, a little bit about myself. They were telling me about the darkness and how it's always been, messing with me my entire life, and what I can do to protect myself, which is why I wear these things. One of the reasons. Um, and then they explained to me that I have to write this book, and that we have to start these buildings eventually, and supposed to do this YouTube channel and podcast and all these different things, and to get this word out. And basically we're here to usher in and help people through, to this fifth dimension, which brings me back to your original question of how I got the name Ascension Guide. When I was starting my YouTube channel, they thought it was funny being the Ascension Guide, because the channel is the guide and I'm the guide. So it was like a play on words. I don't know. They thought it was funny. So that's the name
They
that they
say
gave me.
they. Who are they?
Ariah.
All right.
Like I said, I refer to them as they because sometimes it's
Sure.
familiar
So we
with
just
yeah,
wanna kind of
yeah,
like point
yeah.
of reference, always check.
If I say they, that's who I'm referring to.
But
All
yeah,
right.
sometimes it can be people if we talk about people. But anyway,
Yeah.
so yes, they. And uh, did you take it? Did you resent it?
Mm, I mean, I was open to it, And I would say that it was without my wife and, one of my other friends that was kind of around at the same time, without maybe they believed more than I did at first. Like I was just kind of like
I
still,
believe in it too more.
yeah. So they helped me to kind of accept it a little bit more, and it made it a little easier because I don't know. And there's very multiple factors that they tell me why, I was selected. And, one of them is I'm an extremely honest person. So people know that I'm not going to lie to them. I'm not going to make stuff up. I'm not going to, I don't want the spotlight on me. I don't want any attention. I'm not that type of person that's,
It's not the intention of publicity and so
right.
on, for sure. So
So
it's
it makes,
genuine transfer of information,
right. And
energy.
so I think that makes it a little bit easier for people to understand, knowing what type of person I am and knowing, the logical side. Even when I was telling my one buddy, it was funny. He'll probably watch this too, but I was, explaining to him what happened to me basically. And he's trying to wrap his mind around it. He wasn't, in the spiritual realm at all with anything. So him hearing all this, he thinks I'm insane at first, of course. And that's one of the things he said though. He's like, but you're such a logical like person and you think things through and all these, so it's hard to like discredit because it just makes sense when you say it. And this, I'm like, yeah, I said the same thing. And I'm not trying to change anybody's mind. If you don't believe me, I don't care. Like it doesn't bother me at all. I
Mhm.
know what I went through, I know what I've experienced, I know what I've seen, I know what I've felt, and I know what I've heard. So, and I mean, if this is all my subconscious, then good for me, I guess, because there's so much information that came out of nowhere that I didn't know any. I knew a lot of it. I didn't know all of it. I should say
Right.
a lot of the information that I
So
channeled.
when they were talking to you about like how to, let's say, this about the darkness and how to protect yourself, was it specifically for you, or was it okay? This is generally what works for everyone, and so tell them as
Oh
us.
yeah, yeah. They told me. I made a couple of videos about it. The crystals definitely help. And then using Palo Santo wood. I don't know if you're familiar with
Okay.
that.
Yes.
It's that sage, the same idea. But the Palo Santo, I really noticed I was having a pretty bad week. My vibration was super high. Communication was like out of this world, even better than it is now. Like everything was in my mind's eye was as clear as I'm talking to you. Like I was getting messages, everything. Then I had a real bad dip in my vibration, and I've never really gotten back to that point that I was. Um,
Hmm.
but when I went to go do a channeling session, the lady I do the channeling sessions with, she could just feel the energy on me and stuff. And she used that Palo Santo on me. And instantly I felt like I was like 10 pounds lighter. Like it was crazy. I felt it immediately. Like
That's very
the weight
important
was
that you're
just,
saying this,
yeah. And
and it
just felt like
does
the
work.
weight lifted off me. And ever since then, I've been a believer in that stuff. Like if you'd told me that the day before, I'd have been like, yeah, sure. Like, so
Well,
seeing and
because
feeling is believing.
mhm, I'm just thinking that it can be the same thing about herbal teas. I'm not going to take medication for the headache, but I'm going to drink the tea and it's going to make me better. So we go back again talking about belief is a big time friend.
Beliefs everything. Well, it can be an enemy too.
Yes, absolutely.
So the
Yes. But talking
duality.
about so how burning essences is important, and if you believe that it's going to cleanse the energy in your house or on yourself or
So essentially what I understand is it's kind of making a higher vibration energy with the smoke. And so it's dissipating lower vibrational energies is essentially what's happening. Um, and the same thing you can do with like high pitched, like tuning forks or bells or um, those sort of things will clear the energy too. Which is interesting because it just reminded me, excuse me, when I said that, one of the times when I was starting the path or the hypnosis phase to go into the channeling session, she would use those bells and the tuning forks. And I've gotten to the point now where I can see the energy in my mind's eye. When she hits the forks, I can see the waves of the energy coming across. And then, like, so the lower the frequency, the bigger the wave is, it comes slower. And then the higher the frequency, they come real fast. And I can see it coming from the fork and like through my vision. So when it moves and she comes over here, I can see it coming this way now. And I can tell which fork she's using based on the energy waves. So it's pretty cool to be able to, but I
does it
can,
have colors?
no, when I see energy, it's all white light. So
Okay.
it's like my mind's eye, like when you close your eyes and it's like that black background kind of, and then I'll just see this swirling like white and then like a yellowish white kind of.
Okay. Light, basically. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
With white. Kind of
And
yellowish white.
yeah. And so when I do Reiki and stuff like that, I can see people's energy. I can see where their dark spots are. I can kind of see where how the energy's flowing and all that sort of
Can
thing.
we say that energy that you see, you said it has no colors, but let's say the aura, how do we, that's an energy, right? Around your body. So can you talk about that? Do you know some more about that? I mean, the aura and
So,
the colors, and how do people have different colors?
well, the different colors are based on your emotions, essentially. So whatever you're feeling, I don't see auras. I can if I really like when I'm doing yoga and stuff like that, and I'm really in that like focused. I can see them a little bit, but I'm not there yet where I can see. I don't really see anything with my two eyes other than what I would assume everybody sees. More of my stuff is in my mind's eye, and then
Okay.
I have like two different visions in my head where I see the energy and then I see sometimes where it's like this, where it's as clear as I'm talking to you. It just depends.
And they'll switch.
Yeah.
There are some
Um,
people who can't switch anymore. So all they see is just energy.
hmm,
They don't really even see you as a person anymore.
yeah.
But that's a next level.
Well, that's how I see it with my eyes closed. I
With your
see,
eyes closed.
yeah.
So when you meditate, for example, what do you see? Do you see blackness? Do you see some shapes? Do you see colors?
It really depends. A lot of times, because I kind of go into channeling stages when I meditate at times too. And when I'm in like channeling states, everything's just white. Like everything is, my vision is just white. Um, and then within that vision, sometimes things will come like a, I don't know if I want to talk about this on the video or not, but I told you
Well,
my experience with Jesus and stuff and how like everything's white, but then I just, you see him clear as I'm talking to you pretty much. The difference being it's more like how you have that blur around you. It would be if
right,
that blur is like across you entirely, like I can see I could tell it's you, but it would be blurred. That's kind of how I see them when I see them in my,
right, yes,
like I
yes,
can't, there's no real facial definition, but you definitely know, like, and it's different because you almost feel the energy and know who it is rather than them kind of, and they do tell you if you don't know, like there's certain people I've met still that I'm like, I don't know who that is. I can't put a,
it's like the kids' visions, right? When they are babies, they don't really see clearly, but they know it's their mom.
yeah, right, exactly. And
And then
very
as we
cool.
age, at the age of like 8, maybe sooner, I don't know, we have like 20/20 vision, right?
Right, yeah,
So that's when it is when they say the kids can absorb a lot more because they can't really see. So all they have are other senses they have to rely on. Plus, they're coming from the other realm, so they're still very fresh with all that.
yeah, the veil's a little thinner for them. I think around 7 or 8 years old is when they said it starts to kind of,
Right. Yes.
well, usually from what I understand, it's not so much like an evolutionary thing where I think it's more of a conditioning thing where by the time 7 or 8 kids have been told enough times that that's not real, that's your imagination, that's this or that's that, that they just kind of stop believing in those things or stop, giving attention or whatever you want to say it.
Yeah. And I guess some don't lose it or so, but basically, like 99% of the population do.
Oh yeah, yeah. But it's interesting because I have met a couple of people through doing this and different interviews and stuff that have been in total communication their entire lives, since they were kids. And
Yeah.
and the common theme was that they had parents that were accepting. They had parents that didn't try to, you know, tell them it wasn't
Change
real or
their
whatever.
reality,
Yeah.
dismiss it, and so. Okay, so then you started, I don't know, would I say a channel in that regression, Araya?
Hmm. Yeah.
Okay, and so what did they tell you?
Well, they told me I had to write a book, which I just finished. Actually 3 months to the day. I finished it after we did the first channeling session.
So the book
Um,
is important because
the book talks about everything, everything that you could possibly, well, I shouldn't say that. a ton of the questions that a lot of people have. It's a kind of a journey through the fourth dimension. Like they said, it talks about, the child trafficking and the adrenochrome and the, underground military bases and the cloning, and talks about what your soul's purpose is. It talks about what the purpose of Earth is. And on, a bunch of different, valuable lessons. I should know more since I wrote it and
So
read it,
they
but
shed a light on whether the cloning is, I don't know, how would I call it? It's like darkness or light,
cloning.
the trafficking and so on. So they are, what kind of message was it about? Let's say other, I don't know, whatever the
More
situation is
awareness.
on planet Earth, like, the Black Lives Matters and so on, right? So, I mean, I'm not sure if that's part of your book, but
No.
it's part of our societal problem, right?
So it's essentially awareness is the biggest thing, just making people aware of what's happening, because I think that so much blind faith has been put into our quote unquote leadership that we don't question enough, and we just assume that they're out for our greatest and highest good, which really nothing could be further from the truth in most cases.
So,
Um,
for example, when there's cloning topic,
mhm.
mhm, can you give us
So
an
from what I
insight?
understand, what cloning, so Earth was put under a quarantine. I don't know the exact day. I get the feeling it was in the 50s or 60s, somewhere around there. Um, but Earth was put under a quarantine from outside intervention, essentially. So no negative entities can incarnate. There's still negative entities that did incarnate before the quarantine that are still here, which is why you see a lot of the older, politicians and stuff like that. Um, so effectively, they put on that quarantine to allow the ascension process to proceed as it's supposed to, without any more negative interference than is already present. But I guess the workaround is the cloning, and they're kind of like using them as like remote vehicles, sort of, so they can control them from their bases on Mars, or their ships or whatever, and kind of get them to do what they want them to do without breaking the rules, essentially.
Mhm.
So that's what I understand about cloning. I'm sure there's a lot more to it that,
And so the end point for us, once we know this information, is it just for us to know, or is it just for us to stop it, or?
well, I think the biggest thing in all of this is what they've told me. And, you know, this is all a big game that we're participating in. We're the pieces on the board, essentially. And, the moment that we realize that, and the moment that we become aware of all of these things, who wants to go pay taxes to people who sacrifice babies and drink their blood because of, the drug that it produces? Who in their right mind would pay taxes to that society? Who in their right mind would continue to
Nobody, but
participate?
it's hard to change, right? What am I
Right.
supposed to do? They just take my taxes like that, right? I'm not doing any kind of like distribution of my money
Right. And that's
willingly.
kind of the
So,
hard part. But the beginning is to stop playing. So if we're the pieces on the board and we all walk away, there's no more pieces on the board to play. There's nobody to left to participate.
so
Um,
basically, we should be having our own sovereign. I don't know. We should be creating our own jobs.
yeah. So this is the way, and science is starting to prove this as well. But essentially, what exists to you is what you see, right? So all these things exist because I'm seeing them right now, what I'm observing. So if I don't observe things, then they don't exist. Now there's the individual portion of that and then the collective portion of that. So if I give attention to things, they exist. If I don't give attention to things, they would cease to exist, correct?
Mhm.
So obviously, you and I just not participating in the game isn't going to change anything. But when everybody in the planet decides we're not playing this game anymore, we're not going to war, we're not doing these things, we're not destroying the planet, we're not paying taxes, we're not doing all these things, but then it's over. And it's really that simple. There's no
Okay.
violence necessary. It's just a matter of we're done. We're doing it our own way. We don't need you people anymore. Go away.
So it's just basically the book that would be there for us to read and then start transformation.
So the book's also called The Ascension Guide. So It's your guide to ascending, essentially. Raising your vibration, changing your thought process, understanding the manipulation that's been going on for millennia.
So there are topics also how to do that. Let's say, okay, so I shed a light on this topic, and then I'm gonna also give you tools, let's say how to change your vibration so that you can maybe have more courage to step away from that,
So
whatever
the book
bad.
is verbatim all of the transcripts from the sessions, other than I cut out the first two past life regressions just because I wasn't, they were kind of personal and I didn't know how people would, receive that information right away. I didn't want to turn them away from the book before they even got into, the important parts. Um, so there's no real, it's all just a flowing conversation that you're reading through, and as you're reading through, you're kind of getting multiple stories. You're getting my story of kind of what happened and what happened to me through it, and to the other lady who was a part of this, and then you're also getting the information that is presented through the dialogue that is very much about, like I said, what Earth is and what our purpose is and what we're here to do, and how to raise your vibration through, one of the other things that I was going to get to with, we were talking about the Palo Santo wood, but just imagining yourself in a ball of white light surrounding yourself with a golden shield, and only allowing the highest of white light energies to penetrate that shield. And that may sound silly to some people who aren't into this stuff, but the reason for the shield and the reason why you allow things through, if you have a shield up, it's going to block everything, good and bad. If you have a shield that only blocks lower, entities or negative, whatever, then you're still going to allow that communication. You're still going to open up those lines of communication, because sometimes people close themselves off without even realizing, by creating that, force field around themselves, but now they're closed off from everything. And they're like, well, where'd my
Okay.
communication go?
So when somebody would try to do things like this, how to say it?
Just imagine it. Or
Just
just say it
imagine
in your
that
mind.
I
I just
am.
imagine that I'm standing there and I have this glowing ball of white light around me. And then I just imagine this gold shield being poured over it. And then I say only the highest of, white light and vibration can penetrate through.
Right, and
And it's all
nothing
your
low
intention,
until, okay.
everything. So much of life is just our intention and our will and our belief and all those things. And we just don't give it that much credence. We don't
Because
realize we're as powerful as we are.
we don't realize that. Yes, that's exactly where this book is also leading us to, realizing our power. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Well, that's a
that
lot of
that
it
is the
too,
whole
is
point, I guess.
our divinity. I mean, understanding who we truly are and understanding what we're capable of. And that's the next step in this evolution, and um, trans transitioning into the fifth dimension is, understanding that we have been suppressed. Our abilities have been suppressed. We've been led to believe that we are, dependent on the medical field and all these other lies that have been taught to, told to us for so long.
But
Um,
does the book also explain why that was the era of this, period of time for humanity?
in what way do you mean?
That we basically didn't, we were not awake.
Yeah, I mean, it alludes to that. I think there's some things that are kind of, you got to infer a little bit. But I believe that things happen the way that they had to happen. I don't know that there's really, we could have gone back and, things have to, as you've probably noticed and other people watching this, your awakening unfolds as it has to. And I'm sure there's things that you may have heard. I'm just going to use this for an example. I'm not a religious person, purely an example, but a Bible verse. You read a Bible verse when you're a kid, means nothing to you. 20 years later, you read it and you're like, oh, that's got some deeper meaning to it. You know what I mean? And that sort of thing. So I think that consciously, as a, evolutionary being, or whatever you want to call us, human race, I just look like, I was talking to my wife the other day. We were watching movies that were from like the 80s or 90s, and just watching the consciousness and the way that people act towards animals and the way they think about animals and talk about animals, and how much we've evolved in the past like 30 or 40 years, just in that regard of the way that we think of animals as, sentient souls that are here now, compared to just these, beasts that have no emotion or feeling or whatever. And just that change in that short amount of time, it kind of makes you go back and think like, there's no way this could have happened 100 years ago. There's no way this could have happened 1,000. There's just so much evolution that had to happen, so much change in the global consciousness. And I think part of it that is really accelerated all this is the internet and the ability for this to happen, for you and I to talk and to tell other people what's happening and to grow, that way.
Yeah, yeah. The movies are amazing example. I watched Scary Movie with my little son, and I don't know if it's like from 2000, I think. So that would be like 20 years. And just the words that they would use for one another. And there was like calling somebody gay, and it was like so derogatory and so on, right? And I was like, wow. And we lived in that. And it was that exactly what taught us to be against, different sexual orientation people. And it's unimaginable that you would use certain words like in education as well, when they're changing the textbooks into okay, but it's again very thin line between what is inculcation, right, by these new terms. For example,
Yeah.
Canadian anthem had to change from "All Thy Sons" command to "All Thy Us," because it's also women, right? So it's not just sons as men and so on, right? So business world has business person, not businessman anymore, right? But businesswoman doesn't also resonate anymore, because you're just a person, right? Why would you have to assign this gender all the
But
time?
and that's right there, you're getting to the bottom of what it really is it's to divide and distract and all these other things. One thing that Ariah told me is, if it comes to limiting your vocabulary or taking away words or anything like that, you can guarantee that's not the side you think it is. That's definitely the darkness, because they are the ones who want to limit you and make you have fear when you say certain things, or I can't say this because somebody might think this. That is 100% the darkness. So if
Be
you have fears
politically
over
correct.
certain words, yes, that's all. Political correctness is all the darkness. The light wants you to be unlimited and expansive and creative and not have rules and boundaries in that sense. um so we have to understand that we've been manipulated in that way. And sure, the whole we don't call things gay anymore, I guarantee you that that entire generation that called things gay, 99% of the people never had any intention or any association with actual homosexual people. It was simply a word that meant a certain thing to those people, and that's why they said it. And that's how history has been the entire time. And then some people come along and say, that's offensive. You can't do this, you can't do that. And it takes away part of the lexicon. And now all it does is limit us as people and how we can express ourselves. So what we need to do as people is stop being so damn thin skinned about everything and understand that words are just here as description tools to help us understand what other people are thinking. And that's about as far as it goes. Now, if you want to judge somebody based on the way that they're thinking or whatever, so be it, do your thing. I don't think you should do that either. But, we get so caught up in this word's bad, or you can't say this, or you can't do that. And it's like, who says that it is? Because half of the people, if you talk to people who are these minorities or the people that are being protected or whoever it is, half of them don't even think that way. And so it's like, well, then who are we protecting here? This 1% of people that think this way, where the whole society has to change? That makes no sense.
It's great that you just said that. And so then you had the book to write or to channel. And
Mm-hmm.
what else did they tell you that it's going to be your mission?
Well, kind of this whole putting myself out there. I never had any intentions of really being on YouTube or anything like that. And then, like I told you briefly, there's these buildings that are going to be built, and I'm not the only one who's channeled about these. I actually met a couple other channelers who actually had drawings and stuff for the same building that I've been channeling.
So you
But
get information about building
these
places or
buildings,
spaces for what
so
reason?
they're kind of a one-stop shop for everything. So these buildings used to exist back in Atlantean times. They are like a dome-shaped building. And it kind of looks like a lotus flower. And then on each around the dome, there will be rooms connected that'll look like the petals kind of coming up off the sides. And they will all be a different chakra color, and they will all be used for a different type of like chakra healing and stuff. in the center of the building, there's a giant quartz crystal. The roof is a dome roof that's all like glass in triangle pieces, for sacred geometry. The whole thing's sacred geometry. But that allows the crystal to be charged by the sun as it goes overhead every day. And then, like I said, the building being built with the sacred geometry allows the resonation. There will be a water element that runs through the building that allows it to resonate back like the pyramids used to. Which these are all kind of similar. So the pyramids, there's a 4-sided pyramid, a 3-sided pyramid, and then the domes, and they were all had kind of their individual uses back in the day.
It's very interesting because one of the people that had the quantum hypnosis, that's what they went to their past life saying that that's where they lived. This is how they lived exactly, with this huge crystals and so on and so on.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, back in the Atlantean times in Lemuria, they understand the power of crystals a lot better than we do at this point. But for those, that are pretty new to, I mean, just think of your TV, a liquid crystal display. I mean, it's crystals right there that they're using for your TV. So, I mean, there's, infinite amount of uses that you can have for crystals.
Oh, sure. Like in the spa industry, crystals are always some sort of, either tool or some equipment that there's also something else with crystals, I forgot, but it's all for the beauty industry, right?
Oh, yeah. Well, and that's kind of, it's interesting going back because, like I said, I've never been a jewelry person, but I wear these every day now. And it made me start thinking back to maybe the original reason people wore jewelry was more about what the effects of those stones and stuff
Sacredness.
did for you rather than the vanity of
The
it.
vanity. So can you tell us what it is?
What type of crystals?
Yeah. What is
Um,
it for?
these are, I don't know all that. I just know that they were kind of like,
Oh,
get
so
that
you
out of
just
them.
started wearing them because you started liking crystals and wearing crystals?
No. So I've always, since I found out about crystals, I don't know how many years ago, whatever it was, I've always been able to feel them. Like I feel their energy, the subtle energy or whatever. Um, but after they kind of told me, like they told me to wear this one, which is shungite. And then it was more of like crystals are just more of an intuitive thing anyway. It's kind of what it means to you or what you're drawn to or what you think it's going to help you with or that sort of thing. So,
But
and
isn't it also, sorry, something like if I have particular crystal that works for communication, right? Or throat chakra, which two of them are very famous, is the aqua aura and the blue kyanite, right?
yeah,
Does
I
that,
agree with you. I was getting at more like it seems like whatever you need, you're kind of drawn to.
I see.
So
That's what you meant, intuitive, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But they do have
They're on top.
common
Yeah.
properties that they do allude and help people with the same
Right.
thing. So let's say if you're using amethyst, it has its properties that you can look up and use it for it, but then you kind of connect yourself with the stone and it start having its own properties. They're common for everybody, but they work for you specifically, something like
Yeah.
that.
And it's sort of your
Because a lot of
intention.
people don't know how to work with crystals and nothing about it, and they don't even feel the energy. So
Yeah.
how can we feel energy? How can we, maybe we can also look it up, okay, put it under the moonlight, or I don't know, bathe it in some kind of water, whatever. But yeah, do you know anything more about that?
Yeah, charging them in the sun or the full moon. You definitely want to, like, I Reiki them when I get them, to kind of get my energy going through and clear out whatever's on there. You can
Can
smudge
anybody
them.
do that? Or Reiki, you can do that, but if somebody doesn't have the Reiki course, they would be like, how can I do that?
Yeah, I don't know if you can or
So
not.
it's
I would
important to
assume.
have the Reiki knowledge.
I've never been taught Reiki. I got it
You
through
got it.
channeling sessions.
Right. So that's what I wanted to talk about. Maybe
Okay.
we can move to that one. If you have nothing else to say about the crystals.
Well, I just want to say a couple things actually that sparked up. One, so like one thing they told me to do when I first got my crystals, take them in the shower with me and just put them on the floor and let the water, because you're going to be in there anyway. That helps kind of cleanse them, but it also helps you. So through that, they gave me the idea of one, taking crystals. They said you should have an entire shower that's made out of natural stone.
Oh,
And then you have like slots where you can put different crystals in your shower based on you know, like moonstone, for instance, if you're getting a shower before bed and you want to relax, or whatever it is that helps you wake up in the morning, and you
Ah,
can interchange them. And then the other part is to take shungite and quartz crystal and around your copper piping that brings your water in, to put those around the copper pipe, and it'll help to purify the water as it comes through into your shower.
mhm.
So, and I also like, I put a I can't think, hematite, I think,
Right.
in my
That's nice.
shower right now. It's supposed to help with negativity, so I just keep that one in there all the time.
And is it just to put the stone in there in the bathroom?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I
Well,
think
I mean, ideally, it would be very beautiful, if you come and build my bathroom with the crystals, you
yeah,
know.
I mean, mine's nowhere close to what the vision is. So I just have a
Yeah.
cover crystal sitting in there right now. But yeah, I
Well,
got
the
that message.
intention is that we want to get there, but
Yeah,
obviously, I mean, we don't even
baby
have,
steps.
n- n- we do have the knowledge, but we don't have maybe even money to
Right. Yeah, I know, and that's a
get
huge.
the stones, or where are you gonna get these huge stones from, and so on and so on. I mean, there's this huge amethyst, for example, in usually every good crystal store, right? They have like this huge amethyst or huge whatever quartz crystals and so on, but they're in thousands of dollars, right?
Yeah, right.
So
Yeah, and I mean, I'm not talking about anything that scale. You know, for the shower is just natural stone. You know, is the biggest, the natural stone, and then adding, I mean, a crystal that's this big. Putting it in, just having slots within that shower where you can put them to.
what you said about the cleansing of the water,
Hmm.
um, there are systems that are like in $5,000, right?
Hmm.
You attach it to the faucet and then it gives you this alkaline water and the clear water and so on, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, that works too. The
So
crystals would work as well.
I think it's two different things that are happening there. I think that like a water purifier that we normally use, like a Brita filter or something, is just a filter. It's filtering out things that are not water. What I believe the crystals do is reshape the molecular structure so that
Right.
it is more harmonic, rather than, I think, if there's a Dr. Moto, I forget how he says it.
Emoto.
Yeah. And he did those experiments with the water and saying
Water.
different things to them and how it would give the different crystalline shapes. And I think that that's what it affects. The crystals affect it on that
Yes,
level,
exactly. Yes.
not like it's getting out, fluoride or anything like that. It's just purifying the molecular structure.
Right. And so when we go back to, you can do it with numbers or you can do it with the sound.
Yeah.
All
And that
crystals,
it all comes down to intent. You know what I mean? It's your intention that we're the
whoever can do
creator.
whatever, right? Yeah.
Right. Yeah. We're the creator. What our intent is, that's what, manifests itself, I guess.
And so would there be any kind of number that is generally as a purifying number or some kind of cleansing number? I'm not sure, a protecting number?
I've never.
No? Or a
Never
number
gone through
sequence?
that.
No?
I know you mentioned something, but I kind of, and I could be wrong, but I kind of get the feeling that it goes back to that intent thing, where if you write the number with love and then you set it on the piece of paper with the number there, it's gonna,
Could be a birthday number.
yeah, I think
That's
it, or
that's
your one of your
cool.
synchronicity numbers or something like that. I think
Or
that
yeah.
it's more the intent that you're doing it with, and if you believe that it's doing it, then I think that's the biggest thing. Personally, I don't know. I could be wrong. I mean, I know one thing I'm curious about, because like they've talked about, with the words and stuff like that, and how some people say, well, no, words are bad and you have to watch what you say. And it's like there's that delicate balance of, okay, if I say I can't do something, who's listening? My subconscious all the time. And it's going to say, oh, we can't do that. No problem. Can't do that. So you kind of have to, it's that wordplay of, yeah, we shouldn't limit our lexicon, but also using our lexicon that makes ourselves limit ourselves. So it's kind of that, dog
Well,
in its tail type of thing.
so for example, you would have a swear word, right? You use um somebody sorry, so name calling, right? You can use it with a bad intention, and that's a harsh word. But if you want to open somebody's consciousness and you say, you motherfucker, did you realize what you just do? Right?
Right.
It's gonna be like, what?
Yeah.
That it
So the
comes from
intent.
you, this kind of word, this kind of sentence, this kind of energy. Oh, right. And it really changes the mindset of the person. So well-intentioned, even using these harsh words sometimes are really good.
Well, and the example they gave to me is if you go to a comedy club and the comedian says some off the wall stuff that's completely offensive or whatever, like what's his intent? His intent is to make you laugh. You choosing to take it and be offended by it is your choice. His intent was to make you laugh by saying some off the wall things. You went to a comedy club to laugh. It's your choice to take it the way you did. His intent wasn't that. And he's
Yes.
saying the exact same words. So
But
it's your
also you
choice.
can sense the energy if it's venting. Sometimes they take this as an opportunity to actually get it
Well,
out, right? In a
and
very
that's
angry way.
and that's the thing that they said. It's all about the intent. So what was the intent behind the words? Was the intent to make you laugh, or was the intent to make you cry? So
So
those are the,
any common person, can they discern that? They can. They just don't know that they can, right?
I think it takes somewhat of an emotional intelligence, to be able to understand the difference. And I have to say too that just being myself, who's lost control of my temper and things at times, where sometimes things can come off not in the way that you intended based on your emotion too. You could be in a bad mood and say something that you didn't mean to have, ill intent, but somebody can take it that way because of, so there is a lot to it, which is what makes me really excited for the next level of communication, which is telepathy, because I think that'll clear up so much,
Oh,
miscommunications and stuff like that.
true. But at the same time, that's what it is. A lot of times we smile and say, I'm great. I'm feeling awesome. And we aren't, or we actually are saying something that's a beautiful thing. And we don't feel that. We feel so jealous. Right. So the
Think
telepathy
about how much of
is
that
going
would be, if I understood that though, if you said, you're thinking exactly that. You're thinking, I want to say it's beautiful and this and that, but I'm reading that you can't say it's beautiful because you're really jealous and that you have this past life thing that brings us up and triggers this. And now I just understood everything about that whole situation instead of you saying that's
Oh, but
good with a
that's the
big
next
smile.
level. That's the next level. But the first
Right.
level, I think it's people can tell. I mean, I can for sure. So I'm saying that people can,
Yeah. Oh,
where you would say something with a smile on your face and really sweet voice, or just, really nice voice. And then I could
fake.
say, I could feel, I could sense that you are just not feeling it.
Yeah.
There's some other emotion, right?
Right.
And then the next level would be what you're saying, that yes. So what did you say?
Well, that you would understand why. You
Why?
understand
Right.
why you feel that way. And then it would give me a better sense of, so if I understood why that you don't like that thing because something happened to you when you're a child or this or that, it gives me a better understanding of who you are instead of just thinking, oh, she's a bitch because I said something and now she, gave me the rolly eyes or whatever it is, so you don't understand why or what triggered that, or even, you know, to go a step further, you live in Canada and you said you're from Europe, correct?
Mhm.
So I'm pretty confident that there are certain gestures or expressions or certain things that in America may mean one thing, and in Europe they may mean a completely different thing. You know what I mean?
That
So
got me in trouble all the time.
right. So those miscommunications, just in body language or subtleties like that,
Tone of the
where
voice.
tone of
It's a
voice,
huge
another
thing. I
thing.
was
Yeah.
in like teaching English, and that was a huge thing that I realized, that when I'm saying, "Are you okay?" And the way I would say it in my mother tongue with the tone of the voice would be fine, but in English it sounded like I'm asking you, "Are you an idiot?"
Mm,
Not at all. That was not my
yeah.
intention. I'm so sorry. And that was really putting me into, like, um feeling bad about myself, right?
Yeah.
Because it was the transition from culture to culture. So a lot of immigrants, a lot of refugees, that's what the mental health is stepping in, which is a great thing. Not everybody knows about it, but English teachers are the first, I don't know, I would say, oh, of course, all the other workers, like social workers and everything, right? They're the first people that meet with those refugees and immigrants, and they're teaching them how to live now in a new way. And it's very, how would I say it? It's difficult for
Yeah.
sure.
Well, I mean, and you think of what we talked about earlier with how you grew up, and the more sheltered you grew up and the more that you think that this is the only way it is, and you go out into that world and everything's different. When I was over in Korea, um raising your right hand on the side of the street meant you're about to cross. that was that meant you're crossing the road and people got to stop for you. And if you didn't know that, you might just smash somebody because they're just going to walk right out in front of you. There's no like, traffic signs to tell them to go or whatever. They just walk out in front of
Right.
you.
Wow.
Staring people in the eyes, eye contact is considered extremely disrespectful. So, there's certain things in our culture that, looking in eyes is a sign of, you're paying attention and, giving your attention or whatever. And then other cultures, it's really disrespectful. So clearing those things up through telepathy and understanding and saying, here's my intent, here's what I'm thinking, here's this, you get the whole picture instead of I said this with this look on my face and now you think something completely different. And it's the same thing when you read a text message. If you're in a bad mood and you read a
Oh,
text message, you're going to probably perceive it as somebody saying something negative to you.
yes.
So
That's
it's,
that's hard.
yeah,
That's hard, especially online communication with people that you've never met. You don't know their communication. You don't really know their tone of the voice. It's
right,
so difficult to discern how do you actually mean that, right? And
right.
um, that is going to disappear slowly and surely. But I will, I will ask you back to talk about. Okay, so what else did they tell you to be your mission?
So yeah, I mean the building is a big part of it. And so the building is a place of enlightenment, healing. There'll be yoga, meditation, plant medicine ceremonies, music, for the vibrations. There will be, like Reiki healing and those sort
Like
of
the
things.
new rec centers.
Yeah, essentially. And the enlightenment portion of it is not that I want to be in front of people speaking at all, but I get that that's probably similar to like a church format. The way they explained it is if you kind of looked at a church and a hospital kind of put together, for the future, but without the dogma and without the, you
Yeah,
have to
it's
do
it's
this
a
or have to do
collective
that.
healing, right?
Right.
People would come for collective meditation. That's what's already happening in a lot of places
Yeah.
where they come for let's say I'm not sure if you were with Aaron and he did the 21-day challenge. So
Mm-mm.
it doesn't matter, but let's say if somebody's doing these kinds of online challenges, right? Or I don't know, courses where they come together and they meditate. Oh, that's something I mentioned, but cacao ceremony, right? Like you said, different modalities they do collectively. So they're doing it online because that's all we have right now. But you are going to be building those buildings?
I guess, and that's where I'm like, well, I don't know how I get the money for this stuff. I don't know
And a
how.
bit of Bob the Builder.
Yeah, and I don't know
Joe the
any of
Builder.
the yeah, I don't know any of the next steps other than, the
It's very
book's
cute.
out.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
you don't know when you're supposed to start, nothing.
no, it's
Okay.
very much trust the process, wait for, the guidance and watch for things to pop up type of thing, and which is frustrating at times, but
I mean, I would start even today, right? So I don't know why we have to wait.
well, I do I understand to an extent because it's like they said, if you had a building today, who would show up? Like me and two other people that
Gotcha.
I know. So you kind of through this
So it's
stuff,
starting through
yeah, the
maybe
YouTube
conversations like
channels,
this. Yeah.
right,
All
and getting
right.
followers and getting people to understand that this is out there, and
Oh my.
so it's all part of it. And I know I see it growing, and I see it. I mean, I'm one of those people that's like, tell me to do it, and then I want to get it done as fast as possible. Let's go to it. And so patience is part of this for me, I'm sure. But
Mm.
yeah, I just finished the book in the end of October. It's out to the publishing company that they told me to send it to, so we'll see what happens from there. I'm assuming that some of the book money is going to help with the building. I don't know, or maybe some random person comes along with. I have no idea.
Yes. And you don't have to worry about that because that's what we know
Yeah,
should happen.
yeah,
Don't worry about when, how.
yeah.
Just do it.
So
But
the future of this is, from what they tell me, the goal is to have one of these buildings under each grid point in the ley lines across the world. So
where are the grid
that's,
lines? I mean, where are the points?
I don't know. I mean, there's a map of the ley lines that I know one of the ley lines runs through like where I'm at right now in Western Pennsylvania area.
Mhm.
Um, but they run all over, and it's wherever they intersect, I believe is they want one in every intersecting because they go east, west, and north, south. So I believe it's every intersection point is where they want them because
Would it be kind
basically
of
what
like a
happened,
sacred geometry shape?
yeah, they'll all be the dome.
Okay.
Um, so what happens with these buildings is, and it's probably happening to a degree right now from what they explained to me, but when light workers and people who are, I don't know how to just people like us who are doing this sort of thing, the energy that is not visible, but that is being created between the two people that are doing the interactions is enormous, like way more than we can understand. And so these buildings are essentially creating this energy and feeding it up into the ley lines, and then the ley lines disperse it all throughout the earth and through the universe
Like
and
a
stuff.
fountain.
Yeah. And
Mhm.
so it's very similar to what like the Atlanteans and Lemurians were doing.
Right. Right. I mean, that's what we're going back to, because that's where they couldn't, what is it? They corrupted themselves because before they could actually maybe even ascend more. I don't know, but so then we're coming back. We're taking it where it was left from.
Yeah. So yeah, Lemuria, from what I understand, was pretty close. And then Atlantis was, they were also obviously advanced, but they kind of split into two factions of, the people who were still kind of emotional and that sort of thing, and had their, basically the people on the spiritual path. And then it's exactly what's happening right now. You see this, scientific side that's splitting, that everything has to be logical and this and that, and there's no room for, esoteric things. And
Okay.
so it's basically that fracture that happened. And then obviously the people who have the weapons and that mindset are going to be the ones who are more powerful, because they don't care, and they're more,
I think
about
there was
taking
some kind of
control.
Anunnaki, there was Anunnaki involved in that too.
Okay.
About that.
Yeah. I've heard different things. Like I've heard that Atlanteans were basically a colony from Mars, that Mars destroyed itself, through wars and all those different things. And then so they sent, this is one of the theories I've heard, that the ship that they sent, the colony to Earth, was called Lucifer, and that's the fallen angel, whatever, from the Bible that they talk about, was the ship coming down to Earth. And then those Martian Atlanteans were the ones who kind of had that faction of, the where they were super logical and didn't care about emotion and didn't care about people. It was just, what the people, the elites are now. It's the same thing. They don't care about the destruction or anything that happens. And so they had this giant crystal in the sky that was like an artificial satellite that they were using
You would
to,
say they,
what's that?
who they,
The Atlanteans had this giant crystal in the sky, like a satellite, almost like a moon, that was used to transmit energy both directions, whatever. So the negative oriented Atlanteans got a hold of this technology and started using it as like a death ray, similar to like what Tesla had discovered. And this crystal became overloaded and essentially fell from the sky. And they said had the equivalent of like several of our nuclear weapons exploding at the
okay.
same time. And from what I understand, that's what the Bermuda Triangle is. That's where that fell, and that's why there's all that crazy like energy there and the interdimensional portal and stuff like that. But through that happening and falling, it led to Lemuria being kind of destroyed and then being forced into Mount Shasta. And then the Great Deluge that they talk about in the Bible was actually referring to that flooding that was happening from that.
Yes, it's all beautifully like we are understanding the information from Bible so much better now, and it's becoming not the dogmatically presented information, right? But we're getting it from the right source, the right, how it really happened, or
So,
so I don't know, but yeah.
so they explain the Bible. I'm like kind of hesitant to tell certain things just because of the how insane it sounds. But anyways, I'll just go ahead and say it. So my past life, I was John the Baptist, and obviously he had a part in writing the Bible.
You were John the Baptist?
Yeah. And
Hey,
obviously
thank
the
you
Bible
for
was
meeting me.
the Bible was screwed up partially through my own or his own, whatever, how you want to look at it. So this is how they explained it to me. Channelers, if they don't understand what they're doing, if they don't protect themselves, if they don't protect their energy, they can be easily manipulated. So when Jesus was still around, the information that was being channeled and said and written down was accurate and clear, whatever. When Jesus was executed, everything written after that, they didn't really understand how to protect the energy, and so that there was interference, there was manipulation, there was distortion. So you have that part of the Bible written the way it was.
So can I ask, so the people that were against, or they were fearing Jesus, they killed him, did they know what they're doing, or was it just people were afraid of him?
So Jesus was teaching the stuff that we're talking about now, essentially, that you don't need the church to connect with God, that you are, a divine being, that you can heal yourself, all these different things, all the stuff that was left out of the Bible intentionally. What happened is they being the darkness saw an opportunity within Jesus's teachings. They saw that there was enough truth that they could distort it and create this manipulation and fear through, religion. And religion's nothing new. It wasn't new then. There were still other religions and stuff, but they just saw a way to manipulate it and, change the story enough about the control, to make it about control and to make it about fear rather than love. So anyways, you have the misinterpretations, things that, some of the Bible that John the Baptist wrote, whatever, was clear and true, and whatever else, some of it was distorted based on, the channelings after Jesus was dead. Then you have the next layer of, you have the Bibles that were written in this ancient language that's no longer used, and then translated and retranslated and all those different things. Then you have the so if you've ever read, like, I took a 16th century literature class when I was in college. It's English, but that is an entirely different language. Like, you can read that and not have any idea what you just read, because the words mean different things. It's a different language.
Yes.
So you take that, add that into the translation factor. Then you have the addition, subtraction, omission, whatever, from different kings and different things who got a hold of it. So there's so many different ways that the Bible's been manipulated, from the original writing to the edits and omissions in the future.
Of course. But that was the people that killed him were the darkness. It was not just people, but it was the darkness. Okay.
Well, it's the same way that, I would imagine it's the exact same way that it is today. There's the darkness that's the very tip top, and then there's the regular.
Are they aware that they're darkness?
Who?
Well, whoever is, the elite that is the darkness.
Do they know that they are?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, they do.
So, like, you were John the Baptist, that that you're the light worker, the light. And does the darkness know, okay, so let's say I am, I don't know, John Smith, and I'm the darkness, but I am the politician and so on. You know what I mean? Or let's say a salesperson.
Do they know I'm the light, or do they know that they're
no, about themselves? Just like about yourself. Do they know about themselves?
So there's two layers to it. Like I said, there's the person in control who knows that they're the darkness. They pray to their demon or whatever it is. They do their stuff. And then there's the average Joe police officer who thinks that they're doing the right thing and just obeying orders and that sort of thing. And they're the ones who carry out all these things. It wasn't, the Roman soldier wasn't necessarily the darkness, but they're just following orders. The Nazi soldier wasn't necessarily the darkness. They're just following their orders. So it's a small group of people who are the darkness giving these orders and that are in control, right. But
and they know about themselves that they're darkness.
Right. And then there's
the regular.
Well, because they oriented themselves that way.
Okay.
So it's the same thing. We're all presented choices in life, right? And you can kind of go the good way or the good or bad.
I see. So they have a complete embodiment of the darkness, and that's what they're happy in.
Yeah, well, I don't know, because I feel like some of it is like almost like they feel captive, where they don't know any different, or they just feel that that's the way it is, or that sort of thing. But like Ariah has told me, there's no point that's too late to switch team.
Right.
You can always find the light as long as you're willing. So I think a lot of people either don't know any better. Some people probably truly do like it. Because that's what, like with the celebrities and these different things with the adrenochrome, like they said, they don't take somebody who's, trying to get a part in a movie and take them straight to a baby eating ritual. It's a slow, here, let's see how much, and then see how evil their
The
own mind.
compliance. Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm.
And and some of it's compliance and some of it's like, hey, yeah, let's do this. You know what I mean? There's those people too. So there's all different spectrum. And I think that I feel like the really evil darkness is a very small percent, like maybe, I don't even want to say
Well, and then
10%.
I guess it could be also because of the traits of psychopaths. They just
The what?
psychopaths.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
So there's like a portion of people who, I don't know, I guess through constant actions of darkness, they became distorted like that, and they can't. They just enjoy it, right?
Oh, yeah.
They have actually pleasure in that.
Right. And that's one of the things that kind of I get confused about, because
Of course.
following your highest joy and doing those sort of things, well, is a psychopath's highest joy murdering people, or is that something else that they feel that makes them, misinterpret that? Because we wouldn't want a psychopath following their highest joy if
No,
that's what it
no.
truly is. Or is it a misinterpretation of emotion type
Well,
of thing? Or
that's the thing. I mean, I was watching this show about um, three worst prisons in the world, and they were cannibals, for example, right? But when they had interviews with them, they just had like this face, kind of not sure whether you can actually somehow ask them about the differences in, you know, do you think that you would not enjoy it if you kill somebody else? Again,
they probably don't even know the
they have
difference. Yeah.
no. Oh, I don't know. It's very difficult to describe. I don't think it's about emotions. I don't think it's about, how they grew up. I don't know what it is. It's
Yeah.
very difficult to understand what happened to you.
Well, and I think that we have to remember this too. If people like you and I incarnated to help with the ascension process, there has to be the opposite, right?
Oh
There
yeah,
are people
yeah,
who incarnated specifically to try to stop it in some, way, shape, or form. Or and then I think there's also the other possibility too, like I've heard of soulless humans, where there's literally just, human bags of meat walking around with no soul. And who knows what those beings think about or care about
really.
or do, or, I don't know. Who knows what they are
Like a
capable of.
soulless body?
I've heard, I don't, obviously I can't prove anything one way or the other, but I've heard that is, there are certain, and it's sometimes it's different where the soul just leaves. From what I don't know. Sometimes so the soul was there and then leaves, and there's walk-in,
Well,
all
that
kinds of
that
different.
that's the walk-in. Yes.
Yeah.
It-
But I've heard that sometimes it just leaves and there's nothing there, or people are born with there's no soul. And I don't necessarily know how all that works, or if that's even true or not. I don't know. I've just heard that sort of thing, but I could imagine that a soulless human being could be pretty destructive and not have any, care or even thought of what they're doing. I mean, I just think of lower level thinking human beings and how some of them could be so and that's where I appreciate religion to a degree, because I think that there are so many people that need that, like, hey, don't do this or you're going to burn forever, otherwise they would
Well,
be
that
completely
was
destructive.
that was the point of let's say the Ten Commandments, right?
Hmm.
It wasn't to create a religion, but to
Yeah.
give 10 commandments.
Yeah.
um,
And it's interesting because I get it. I see it from both sides. I see the control part and how, we don't want to be controlled and we want to have our expression and this and that. But then I also see that some people truly are just animals, and I, I shouldn't even say that because I like animals, but like,
well, I know what you mean, and
yeah,
that's the cliche saying that we always use. Yeah,
yeah,
the
yeah. But
beast,
it's
right?
like they would just be completely out of control if they didn't have this like overarching fear of going to hell in their head, like, oh, if I do this, I'll go to hell or whatever else, or not get into heaven. Or but then you go back to what I was getting at with the Bible is the way you can tell the difference if it's true or false is how does the message resonate? Does it resonate in fear? It's false. If it resonates in love, then it's part of the truth.
And if it
So,
doesn't, then you don't understand. Let it go.
yeah. So the fear of not getting into heaven because you don't do the right thing, obviously fear. The fear of going to hell if you don't do the right thing, fear. The fear of God's wrath by creating this flood that killed everybody except for the chosen people who got all these animals that eat each other out of the same boat, whatever. But it's just what does the message tell you? It tells you to be afraid of God. And if that's the message, it's false. And it's as simple as that. If God does not want you to fear him, that's not how it works. This whole process is you are an expression of God. You are God expressing itself in all the various forms to learn the individual lessons that that person can learn in that expression in that form. So God wanting to punish himself for creating his own decisions and make sense of it for me, please, because it doesn't make sense. And I know not everything has to, but when you look at it from that
Well,
standpoint,
this
why
one
would,
does for sure.
yeah. So it's you can see where the levels of control came in to keep people
Yeah,
in line.
it's just emotions. Like you simply can see it in parenting, child parent interaction. That's exactly the first very small units, and then we can talk about communities and societies, right, and the world and so on. It's all just imposition of one's will over another's and so on,
And that's an
for little petty
interesting,
things and bigger things. But yeah.
and that's an interesting discussion there too, because it's so interesting going through your own personal evolution and your thought process of how you think things should be as a parent, or whatever, how you thought it was as a kid, how you thought it should be once you become a parent or whatever. And then the enlightening phase of like, I don't really want to control other people, but I also have to have rules within my house and so it's like kind of a
Well,
weird
because
conundrum that,
I think it's the grounding when you take it from the perspective of you have to function in the world. So what do you need for this world? You need
yeah.
to learn financial, I don't know, skills, for example, to have you have to learn certain skills. So for example, you have to learn how to, let's say, save and what I spend, right? That's
Mhm.
like a cause and effect. If you spend too much, you don't have enough, and then you don't, I don't know, you can't progress in certain areas that you would like to. So if you keep buying 50 different guitars, then you can't pay rent and feed your kids. There's something wrong there. So it's like we teach kids because they all care about I don't know, about their little things, but they don't see the bigger picture, which you are the parents seeing the bigger picture that we need money for this and this and this. You're not the only person, right? So
Yeah,
that's exactly the God and us, right? And the other guides, they see the bigger picture, and you are only focused on your one candy.
that's a good point. I think what's interesting about it is like because I'm that type of person that you can tell me to go around the wall and I got to smash my face into it 5 times before I go around it. Like I have to do it myself. And that's where it's kind of like we can tell kids all they want, or all we want. And then eventually, most of the time, most of those lessons they have to come and figure out on their own for them to learn it
Absolutely.
anyway. So that's where
Absolutely.
it's kind of like that. And I get it because I wanted, looking back, I wish I would have listened to a lot of the advice. It would have saved me a lot of, but also at the same time, those lessons were much more vivid and scarred me, so I don't make those mistakes again.
That's the thing, that if it's that you get the guidance, it's great. So for example, in discipline and commitment, so you're achieving goals in life, right? But
Mhm.
if you weren't guided by your parents, in any case, life pushes you to learn that, right? It's a hard
Right.
way, but it's so much more, it stays with you so much more too, because it was kind of naturally given to you. So you don't even know that, oh, I was guided like that, right?
Yeah.
Now I have to develop it myself. How much more powerful do you become, right, when you
Oh yeah.
can develop certain skills or gain knowledge by yourself and so on. And that's probably going back to the beginning of what we talked about, where the education should go.
Yeah.
You have the power. You can put a jacket on yourself. I don't have to help you. But again, I'm not going to have you cut, apple when you're a 3-year old, because no, probably not yet. But
Well, and that's a good point too, because I feel like there are so many parents, and this is also something I've channeled, that the old saying, the road to hell is paved through good intentions. Like the kids or the parents think that they're helping their kid by, granting their immediate wish. They're crying because they want this candy, or they want to go here, or they want to, oh, well, I'm going to make my kid happy, so I'm going to, do that. Failing to see the bigger picture and what kind of monster that they're raising and putting out into society, that every time they don't get something, they whine and cry. And you see society now is a bunch of kids that were raised that got everything they wanted when they whined and cried. And that's why we have the, society that we do. And, or when your kid falls down and you pick them up every time, they never learned how to pick themselves up. So when you're not there, it's all fine and dandy when you're there to do everything for them. But as soon as you're not there, they are a completely helpless human. And is that really what our end goal is? Is that what we should be trying to do, is create helpless humans? Or should we tell the kid to pick themselves up and dust themselves off
No,
so that they
because
can?
as a mother, I experienced the shame of, the surroundings that, oh, you're not doing this for your child, or what kind of mother you are, and oh, at the playground, they're just running by themselves.
Right, I know. And it's such
It
an
was
insane
hard.
thing.
It was hard. But yes, we all overcome things like that.
Yeah. And we just have to, you know, we're very much like an immediate gratification society where everything is, I have to be happy right now. It's not about, 5 years from now. And so many people can't accept having their kid hate them now and appreciating what they did for them later. They would much rather have them love them now
Well,
than.
and then that's the problem of relationships. We are not having fulfilling relationships between adults. So they impose it on you have to, as a child, give me that fulfillment too.
Mm, yeah, that's
That's still
interesting.
running in society. So we do have people that are psychologists or therapists that are revealing all of this, but it's gonna take time. It's really not good. So going back to like building all these crystal buildings and domes and healing centers and so on, right? Yes, but probably not. I mean, why not? Just the consciousness isn't there yet. We have to fix parents first. So then the kids, even the kids that are growing up. I have 14-year-old son. I'm not sure how your kids, how old they are, but I already see just the old pattern as we all grew up in, like, mom, um, like with these girls, right? They're looking for validation, so I can't like tell them, oh, you are so beautiful. And so this is all they're looking for, and then they fall for guy like this and a guy like that. And then you can see the manipulation of like, oh, I want to get under her pants, or under her skirt, right? So I say things like this and so on and so on, right? So it's, um, I don't know, very, um, I don't know, how would I say it? Not hurtful, but it's like, oh, damn, it's still there.
Yeah.
So even this young generation still carries this sin,
Yeah. No, and I think a lot of it is going to be on parents and changing, and you see it now, and I don't know how it is in Canada, but in the United States right now, I mean, they literally activated the FBI to go after parents that are complaining to school boards about what their kids are being taught. And that's got to be one of the biggest wake up moments for parents, to say, what is going on here? We don't have control over what our children are being taught. What planet are we living on? Like, this is
Well,
not how it's supposed to be. And that's, I feel like, is the first step in
I'm not sure
changing
how
the
it is
whole
here.
paradigm.
That's crazy that you're saying that it's FBI in the States, but in the UK, it's Islam. So a
Hmm.
lot of Muslims started transforming the schools, and so let's say the people that are in the Islam or following the Islam religion, they are now the rulers, right? So it's in the school boards, they're imposing this kind of religious acts. They're going to be teaching kids in the schools and so on and so on, and they're building mosques and so on. So nothing against that, but if you are changing the population, you are what, culturalizing them and also indoctrinating by the religious dogmas. What
Hmm.
happened with Christianity, with the natives here in Canada? So the Catholicism took over, and the natives that were here, is the First Nations, right? They basically were killed. A lot of times they kill their kids because they didn't want to comply, or they had to change the society, so by killing them they had others obey, and then they would switch them to Catholics, right? Where they
Hmm.
were connected to the nature and the moon cycles, and they lived, you know we killed if we had to, we ate only what we needed, planted only what we needed, and we had these rituals and all that, and we were happy here until you came.
Right. And I don't know if you've heard about all these bodies that they've been finding in Canada from all those
Yeah,
schools
it's
that they
over
send
thousands
the
of
natives
bodies. I
to.
don't know, like 7,000, 8,000 bodies now. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
Well, they
Yes.
would send
So
them to these re-education schools, like you said, to try to make them into Catholics or whatever. And
yeah,
then if they didn't adapt, or I don't know. I don't know what happened behind closed doors. I would imagine that the adrenochrome is probably a big part of those sort of things. And um, everything has its there, like Ariah told me, what better way to get away with things than to disguise yourself as the people who are protecting from those things.
Oh,
You know what I mean? So the people who are rescuing child trafficking are some of the biggest child traffickers, the Red Cross and some of these other places that are just kidnapping
ooh,
kids and donating to these elites and stuff. Most people would never believe it because no, so because I always hear the argument, if the Red Cross does this, or if the medical field does this, then how do we get rid of this? Or how do we cure that? There is both sides. There is duality. They can
that's
still do
the
good and do bad at the same time. The good face
world,
is what they show the world. The bad face is what they hide and who they
yeah,
truly are.
the World Health Organization.
Yeah, another one. All of these companies, you can go on and on. The United Nations, I mean, it goes on.
United Nations, oh, that's a beautiful one
Their
too.
United Nations is some of the biggest rapists on the planet. But people get fooled because they believe that these things are created for their better good or and they couldn't believe that somebody would, it's all just sounds like conspiracy, which the term conspiracy theorist was coined by the CIA in the 60s to discredit people who had true information about events that went against the narrative. So people should understand these things, and then it'll make things a little easier to understand. When you have the people who are doing their things wrong telling you that you can't question it, and that if you do, you're a conspiracy theorist, that should tell you something is not right there. But too many people can't critically think, and they just watch the news and believe whatever they're told, and you get the society that we have right now.
Yep, yep. So, and then through this either channeling, so first it was your regression that you got information, this is what you're going to be doing. So you started doing that. And apart from the book and the buildings, what else did they tell you that you're supposed to do? Or they gave you an option that you can also do something? Like as a
So
person physically, sorry, as a physical entity, right? So you would be just the builder? No, but you would be maybe also healer, or just
it's
like
a
a priest
combination.
kind of
Yeah.
new way.
Well, so this is kind of what I get out of it is I'm kind of supposed to be a counselor, a musician, a healer, and kind of an educator all in one. But they all tie together if you kind of look at the bigger scope of things and how music ties into the healing with the vibrations and those sort of things. And then you have the physical, like Reiki healing that I can do, and then counseling and talking to people. And like when I was talking to you the other day, and they'll just give me the right thing to say, or they know what you're going through and what you need to hear, and they'll just kind of channel it through me and tell me what needs to be said. Or so I think healing is kind of the overarching theme of all of it, but there's so many different modalities within that can be used.
I have a good point in here. You said healing. So is it all about healing today? Like these days, or this period of time is going to be all about healing from the darkness until we maybe don't have to heal anymore? We're just gonna live it actually.
So I guess what I say when I'm saying healing is if I was trying to describe it for myself, because I don't really have like these emotional scars or stuff that I'm like trying to get through. Like I don't like that word trauma and stuff. It doesn't resonate with me. I know other people went through stuff, and the things that I went through, maybe they would be considered a trauma to some, but to me it's like, it's just life.
Well, you
Other
had
people went through
past lives
crazy.
that you know overcame
True.
a lot of things. So for sure, these very, I don't know, concerning things that happen to a lot of people for you wouldn't be of concern because you had massive history.
Yeah. But I mean, like, so some people, and I'm not discrediting anybody. Some people went through
No.
some serious shit, and I just, it doesn't resonate with me. I haven't really felt that something that I would call trauma in my life, even though I'm sure other people could, some people are like, well, your mom telling you no when you were 4 about something could be trauma. And it's like, I don't resonate that way. But anyways, I feel like what healing is it's taking you from the glob of human that you are, with no knowledge of what's going on in the world and how you can heal yourself and do all these other things, and transforming you into an independent soul who can help others. And I think that's the healing stage, when you can realize that most people in this world I need the medical field. I have to have my pills. I have to do this. I have to do that. I'm totally dependent on these people. I can't live without this. And then once you realize that all you need is yourself and that you are everything and that you're completely whole, that's when you're healed. And then when you can start helping other people, that's what I would say is healing.
Right. And so eventually that's going to be about each one of us, that we are sovereign consciousness in the body, and then we can contribute to one another.
Because this is my
Eventually we don't
theory.
have to heal, we don't have to service, but we're gonna just be happy living side by side,
So this,
contributing to each other's
this is
lives, I
my
guess.
theory about healing is our ultimate goal is to have our head be completely clear of any thought at any time unless we want to, right?
And
So
you mean as you mean ultimate goal in one's life, or
yeah,
altogether
enlightenment.
in?
So enlightenment is being able to completely clear your mind and have no thoughts and just be an open channel and think about what you want to think about. I mean, not saying that thoughts aren't going to come through, but being able to control that whole process. A thought pops up you don't want to think about, you clear it away. Your mind's empty. And then you're open to communication, you're open to your whatever it is. That to me is the end state. That's the enlightened state of you're completely in control. Trauma or whatever all these other things are distractions. So maybe it's a physical distraction. My back hurts. Now I'm thinking about that. I'm not thinking about, helping other people, whatever it is. I'm thinking about that. I'm thinking about this incident that happened earlier today where I'm pissed off and it's just looping in my brain.
Right.
I'm thinking about something else and I can't get it out of my head. Constantly, constantly, constantly. How am I helping anybody else, or how am I healing if I'm constantly caught up in these thought loops or these things?
So you become not selfless, but you become selfish because it's
Well,
all about you.
so this is the interesting thing, right?
Right.
We're all one, we're all the creator. So any service to others or service to self is all serving the same entity, right? So it's all service to self. The difference is, are we serving out of greed or are we serving out of love?
Mhm.
So are we loving ourselves and helping ourselves become the optimal person that we can be so that we can help others? Or are we just focusing on ourselves because we want to be greedy or whatever it is? So there's different layers to that.
Right. Yes.
But the ultimate goal to me is to be in total control of our thoughts, have no thoughts in our head unless we want them. To be able to, like now I've learned to, like you get a thought in your head, you just kind of swipe it out of there, just like swiping left, whatever, and then get that thought out of there, be in control. Because otherwise you're distracted and you're thinking about other things and you're not in control of the situation. And if you're not in control, then you don't have the power, and the power is in someone else's hands. Or, this person made me mad, so I have to be mad now. And it's like, no, you made yourself mad, right? And you're choosing to be mad.
It is funny, but it is what we get caught up for sure.
Yeah. And that it's not, and a lot of people, depending on where you are, on your evolutionary journey, it's hard for people to say it's my fault, or, even if it is somebody else who did it to you, it's your choice to react the way that you did. You can have some other external, stimuli that makes you incredibly pissed off or angry or whatever else, but you choosing to embody that emotion is your choice.
Well, it's exactly like you get pissed that you got COVID, for example, right? So if we think of people harming us, that's probably what it's very easy to imagine, because I mean, maybe growing up, we all had that, right? The victim kind of uh, mind frame that, oh, you said this about me, or you did this to me, and so on and so on. And with the virus doesn't choose, right? So it just happens, and then you're mad that you got sick. Well, are you accepting it, this virus, or are you not accepting it? So is it going to make you sick, keep you sick, or no, I'm just not going to accept it, it's not going to make me sick?
And
And
that's
it's going to go out of your, let's say, aura, right, or your field.
so, and what I've channeled too is once you reach a certain vibration, you don't have to worry about getting sick anymore.
Right.
Those are low vibrational things that happen to you. So if you're getting sick or you believe that you get sick, so how many people out there every Christmas they catch a cold? Or
Because it's repetition and I'm expecting it to happen.
exactly, I believe.
It's darkness, I'm going to be depressed.
And how many people say I never get sick? and they don't
Oh,
get.
never say never. Oh, just because I said it, and tomorrow I got sick, right? It's just, yeah,
Well,
it
if they
works
truly
like this.
believe that they
So,
never get sick, then they won't get sick. That's the
and I
thing.
want,
And so let me clear that up real quick, because there's a difference between thinking something and believing something.
Mhm.
Thinking is the seed that gets planted towards belief. That's the initial stage of anything. No action has ever been done without a thought first. So this is how you can tell the difference, though. Ask yourself, is my name Joe Martin, and see what that feels like. See what that resonates like. And then ask yourself how you feel about COVID, or ask yourself how you feel about one of these other things. Ask yourself if you think you can get sick, and see what it feels like, and start to learn the difference and ask yourself. And then, like they call them mind tricks, but, like mantras and things like that, where you're changing that inner belief system. And you can do it. It takes time, it takes effort, but it's definitely doable. And it's changing your mindset to believe that you can do anything, or that you can do this, or you can heal, or whatever it is that you need to do.
okay. So, for example, if I say, "Oh, is my name Linda?" And I brighten up because it is.
You feel that right
You
here.
feel that.
I see right below your rib cage, where your sternum is. You should feel, it's either going to feel warm and gooey all through your whole body, or you're going to have that little bit of hesitation right there in
Okay.
your solar
And
plexus.
so, for example, if I say, "I may get sick," and it feels like, oh, right in that kind
Or
of
say,
spot where
I
you
never get sick.
described.
I never get sick.
So what does that
People,
mean? But what does that mean if I say something, oh my gosh, this is never gonna be accomplished, and then you feel, or is it going to? No, you maybe have a question. So is my name Linda, and is this going to be completed?
it's
Right.
more of
So
a
it's not
belief.
like,
You're asking yourself if you believe something. So it's not, is this going to happen, or do I believe this, or do I feel this? Am I a person who gets sick all the time? Do I get sick all the time? And if you feel that, you're going to feel how it vibrates within you. Does it feel
okay,
like,
so
yeah, you
when
do get
when I
sick
feel
all the
like,
time?
it's very anxious, what does that mean? It tells me that I feel anxious about getting sick, so it means that I'm accepting it, that
It
I might
tells
get sick.
you that you don't believe it in your whole core. So in order for something to be true to you, to actionalize or become actionable, you need to believe it with your entire core. And so, like, there's
Okay.
people who say, I believe I can heal myself. And then you feel that and you're like, oh, they don't really believe that. They just say that. Right. So there's that finding out the difference. If you truly, in your mind, there's lots of things that I believe. In here, I haven't quite conquered that yet. You know what I mean? So, but it starts here. But just understand the difference of, well, I think that way. I think I can do this. But do you believe it? Does your body believe it? Does your core believe it? Does your subconscious believe it? And that's the difference.
And you're saying that how you know that your subconscious does is that feeling that you get from,
Yeah. Yeah. So that's why I
what
say ask yourself something that you know is true 100%. I believe this, or I believe my name's Joe Martin. How does that feel? Yeah. I get that warm
okay,
sensation.
so if I, let's say, don't believe that the buildings I'm gonna be ever able to build, I don't feel that belief in my whole, being. So is it something that you are gonna have to work on to believe it completely?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, mantras,
Okay.
telling yourself, affirmations, those are ways that you can reprogram your subconscious. That's why I said, when you say you can't do something, there's always somebody listening, and it's your subconscious. They never turn the ears off. So whenever you say something, it's listening. If you constantly say, I can't do this, or I can't do that, or I'm not this, I'm not that, then you're not going to be that, and you can't do that. So be aware of what you're saying out loud or thinking, because that's what's going to become who you are. So many people, and they don't even realize they do it. Just like when we were talking the other day, they don't even realize, but I mean, that's the stuff that I've been kind of, I don't want to say trained, but that they've kind of shown me to look out for is listen to how people talk about themselves, listen to what they say, because what they say is what they believe, especially when it's coming out subconsciously and they're not really thinking about what they're saying. The things just slip out. I can't do this. Well, there you go. There's your answer. You just told me you can't. So I definitely believe that you can't, because you believe that you can't. So it's a whole mindset that you have to start flipping around.
Yeah.
One of the greatest things that ever happened to me was I had a friend of mine when I first started playing in one of the bands I used to play in. And we were talking one day, and he just said something that like totally changed my life. And we were talking about something. I was like, oh, can you do that? And he was like, I can do anything. And like right now, I'm just like vibing about it. I'm just like, man, like just saying that right there, I can do anything. How much does that change in your life? I can do anything, and then believe it. And now I'm getting to that point 8+ years later, however long it's been, where I'm starting to truly believe those things. I believe I can do anything. If there's a problem, I can solve it. If it's something that needs to be done, I can do it. But so many other people give that power away and say, oh, only a doctor could do that.
Well,
Only a
so
scientist could do that.
okay, true. Those are more difficult things to believe in, but let's say if you because it's like always the doctors that were protecting us, treating us, curing us, right? You never even thought of I don't know, that you are your own doctor.
Right. It's the awareness.
And so there are things that you have in your power, which is, let's say, getting job or getting job done.
Mm-hmm.
So that's much easier for people to kind of start training themselves in, right? In
Mm-hmm.
things that they can do that is really in their power. Let's say, I feel so lazy, but I have to cook.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you can do it, right? Go ahead and do it. You can do anything. And I guess then you can proceed to bigger things.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah, I mean, it's all just changing your mindset and what you
yeah.
believe that you're capable of. And I'm sure that there is. So like the first example that always comes up with people, well, I can't fly.
Okay.
Okay. Who on this earth truly believes that they can fly? If you ask yourself that question, who believes that? I
I
guarantee there's
don't.
nobody, because there's been nobody to do it. Unless also we do fly. We fly in planes, we fly in helicopters, we fly in hang gliders. There's all kinds of different ways that we do fly. So
Yes.
now it's a semantic sort of thing also. Like, so do we? Yes. Are we doing it the way that maybe like a bird? Perhaps not. Could we potentially do it? I believe so. I believe anything's possible. I think that
Well,
we've
we
just been.
are, but it's not our physical bodies that can float.
Not yet,
Not
but I've
yet.
definitely been told that like I've been training in dreams to levitate, and I know there's other people that can levitate
Yes.
out
And
there.
that's where I wanted
So,
to go into also the sound. With the sound, you can levitate, you
right,
can make things levitate.
right.
And so you can part the seas. That's what actually is believed, that that's what happened when Moses was crossing the Red Sea
Mm-hmm.
with the Hebrews, right? That's who they had. They had the sound. I don't know whether they had drums or other things, but that's how they partied the water. So going back to the glass of water, for example, what Emilta was saying, you can restructure, recrystallize, or I don't know how to say it. What's the chemistry term for that?
Oh,
You have the crystal grid, and then you can restructure the grid.
yeah, I'm
I don't
not.
really know, but
Yeah,
yes, I understand.
I know.
So, um, I want you to tell me the last thing. I had something else. Yes, I have two things. So, what currently are you available to do for people? Like, what kind of service can you offer if they would like to contact you?
Um, well, I'm just starting to kind of do the Reiki. I'm still trying to get clarification on exactly what I have, because mine's not like regular Reiki. It's not, it's different. And so it's a lot more powerful. And some of the other people who do Reiki are still confused about what I have because of the way I received it and all those different things. And so I'm still trying to get clarification on all that, how to market it, whatever. But I've done it on a few different people, and I've got really good feedback. So I can do that stuff.
Can you do it remotely, online?
I believe I can. I've done it before. I have to kind
Okay.
of go based on what other people tell me. I don't know
Well, I'm
yet.
just asking because I know there are people who are healing just by, they call it like a divine fingerprints. So it's what they put out there. They also said that they got it from Jesus, just like you said.
Yeah.
Your healing modality was given to you
Yeah.
from Jesus. So, and that's now makes sense. Obviously, you're not just the angel, you're John the Baptist. So yes, they say it works. It doesn't matter that it's technology that is the screen. It is the remote healing where we always can do it, the telepathy, the teleport, and you don't have to be present. You are present when you,
Right. And
there's a
it's,
way to do that for them. Yes.
yeah, and it's the energy, and the belief and stuff. And it's also, this is where I'm still kind of trying to understand too. Like I'm just kind of like the facilitator. Like I'm not doing anything, I'm just touching you. And I mean, there's a level of it because I do see in my head and I'm kind of messing with the energy in that way and my intent and stuff like that, I'm sure. But I feel like most of it is just me being a channel and you being open to receiving it and letting it do what it's supposed to do is more the
Yes.
key to it.
Mhm.
Um, and so I don't know. I'm still learning all that stuff. I've kind of been counseling people randomly, that just kind of start talking to me, just kind of how we were doing the other day. And, people
You
just
don't
ask.
really have a setup service that, okay, I'm charging like $50 for advice.
Well, that's what I was telling my wife the other day. I'm like, I could be charging like $150 an hour with some of these people, I know what like counselors and other things too, but I'm like, to me right now, my main focus is I just want to help people. And I know that, money will find its way to me eventually.
It's
So
gonna start. Okay, so that's how, at what point you are, this is where you are. Okay.
mhm.
And
I'm trying to do what you just said. I'm trying to figure out how to take this from I have this set of skills or gifts or whatever you want to call them, and how can I get them out into the public and offer myself to the world better, I guess. So I'm in that kind of transitory phase right now.
are you doing it by yourself, or are you asking for help?
Well, yeah, I mean,
Not us, but I mean,
yeah,
whoever
yeah,
you're
yeah.
talking to.
Yeah, and they've shown me about doing, opening like a business, and they've kind of given me the idea of, kind of what we were talking about the other day, that I think it's sort of a Reiki modality, but I also feel like it's almost there's more to it than that. It's kind of a counseling session and like,
It's a holistic approach to this person.
yeah, because
Yeah.
I see things about people. I see their traumas, in my head when I'm doing the Reiki, when I put my hands on them, I see the things that are blocking them essentially. And like I said with you, I kind of just they kind of just tell me or have the right thing come through me to say at the right time. And it's sort of a whole therapeutic thing. And I've seen a few different people that, the few people that I've done it to, and just, it really, I mean, it's changed their lives. There's no other really way to say it. Like it's totally, and it's very gratifying for me to just see, well, this is what they were 5 minutes ago or 10 minutes, and now to see where they are, and just that it's really amazing. And so I do get an enjoyment out of that.
Mhm. And the last thing before we can finish this, and then I would like to have you back on specifically talking about how you receive that, what is it, the kind of special Reiki that you're you're giving it a name.
Yeah, I'm
So
still
you
kind of,
can more in depth talk about that
yeah.
whenever you're ready. So what is coming through for us at this point? What is like maybe either message or vibration, or maybe for this particular conversation or exchange, or I don't know, energy that is between us or around us for the
But
day, for this moment? I don't know. I don't know.
are you talking about you and I specifically, or just the people involved in
Do
it?
you have any kind of
Um,
something that is coming through you for us?
well, I get the feeling that this is part of, like I said before, there's always that like step where you have to have the one thing before the next thing, and then it all makes sense. But this does feel like it's sort of part of the stepping stone process of, there's, like I said, if we had a building, who would come to it? So this is all part of it, and becoming more enlightened and finding more people who are on the same kind of path. And one thing I've noticed too, you're interviewing me, but hopefully I'm helping you in some way too. So it's a lot of these are symbiotic relationships where, you're helping me get my name out there, but hopefully me talking to you and enlightening you with certain things or answering certain questions that you may have had, hopefully there's some sort of process too. And on top of that, whenever I'm doing these things, I'm always sending Reiki and stuff. So hopefully people feel better when they watch these things, and it, helps brighten them up a little bit.
Very
So
good to say. Thank you so much.
yeah.
Hmm.
So I really appreciate you doing this, and I look forward to definitely coming back again. It'll be fun.
Yes, I am also looking forward to have a lady that is coming, or girl, I don't know, woman. She's doing very different thing, but the same concept. So you will hear when she's explaining that, because I had a meeting with her, obviously informally at first, just to kind of get to know each other, because it's in that community a lot of people are doing various things, but we don't know each other, right? So it's good
Yeah.
to kind of warm up and like what's going on there.
Right.
So she is doing very interesting thing holistically. She's giving a package to her client, and they have homework, but I would call it a practice.
Yeah.
It's a great thing.
Yeah.
Always leave them with, okay, so, but this is an end for you. You have to. You don't have to.
Yeah.
Again, the wording, right? It's advised that you
Well,
would be continually, let's say, meditating, using this mantra, right?
right.
And so on.
And there is a level of that we have to participate too. It's not just you're going to sit there and everything's going to automatically come to you. Like I didn't, I've been doing yoga every day pretty much for the past 2 years and, meditating and doing all these different things. It wasn't like all of a sudden it was just like, oh, here you go. Like there was a process to get to where I'm at. It's not like I
Do it every
hear a
day.
lot of people, nothing's happening. It's like, well, what are you doing? Are you doing anything to help yourself? Are you trying? Is your intent, or are you just sitting there expecting something to happen to you? Are you meditating? Are you doing yoga? Are you doing any of these things to try to connect? Are you or are you not? I mean, you got to be honest with yourself. I'm not asking it to judge. I'm asking for for yourself. Ask yourself that question.
And that's a good point, that a lot of people would take it defensively because, oh, there's lots of work and you are putting it like this to me, and oh, I feel so bad that I have to work like this. And it's easy for you to say that. Sorry.
Yeah.
They have to understand I'm talking with that type of tone, or I'm using these words and I'm looking at you with this focus. It's because of you, not because
Yeah.
of me.
Well, and one thing that I am awful at sugarcoating things, I will tell you exactly how they need to be, because I feel like when you cut to the chase and you hit somebody and you strike that nerve that they can't run from it. They can't, they know what you said. They know it's true. It rings hollow, all the way through them. They know exactly that you're being honest. It's a different type of, when you tell someone exactly how it is and what they need to do, and they can accept it or not. It's their choice. I don't, I'm just here to present what information I got, whatever. But it's on you, all of it is on you. So you have to make the choices. You have to make, the conscious effort to evolve. It doesn't just happen. So
It doesn't just happen. I wish we do, because we hear stories like yours. You go into hypnosis and boom, you get new life, right?
yeah. Yeah.
So we all hope
That's
for.
8 years later, by the way, of me starting the awakening process. So it wasn't it wasn't just I all of a sudden awakened and started. This is 8 years of going through meditation and yoga and different things and
Till
learning.
you get to the point of doing the hypnosis and so on. Yeah.
Right.
So
Not saying that somebody else can be a lot faster. I'm just saying my journey specifically was
no, for sure.
just bang, bang,
And
bang.
that's,
It was a long process of evolution.
I mean, you've probably done a work as a child as well. You just didn't know.
Yeah.
You were always preparing yourself with
Yeah.
all of
Sure.
that was happening to you and for you.
Yeah. Well, reflecting, like I was talking about earlier, being able to reflect on situations and learn the lessons and understand, the overarching theme, those are huge evolutionary steps, because so many people don't learn the lessons that they're here to learn. So they have to keep repeating them. And then that's where the karma comes in. If you're not learning the lessons that you were presented or that you set up for yourself to learn in the lifetime, they're going to keep coming back and back and back and back. So
Okay,
sit there and
so just
reflect.
one more thing. It's hard to reflect, and especially if you don't have the awareness. So is there something that is helping us to uncover something we don't know about ourselves? That this is the pattern you're repeating. So hypnosis is one of the options that we
Mushrooms.
can do, but
Mushrooms.
mushrooms. Okay, so
Or any
you're
plant medicine.
plant
But
medicine,
understand what plant medicine is. So many people think plant medicine is just to go get high, which, whatever. If you want to go get high, go get high.
right?
But when you go in there, and if you're having a bad trip, understand what's happening. It's showing you all of the things that you need to come face to face with. It's showing you your ego. It's showing you, and it's breaking you down, and it's telling you this is how it is. You can accept it or not. That's up to you. I've had my ego shattered a few times doing mushrooms where I had total out of body experiences. I saw Earth, from a totally zoomed out point of view. I was laughing that we pay to live here, like the whole thing. Like I was just completely detached from myself and seeing it for what it was. And it was a huge, it was a crazy trip, but it was very enlightening. And, I think a lot of people, I don't know. I don't want to encourage it or discourage it, because I know there's a lot of people that aren't ready for it and don't understand what it does, and it can scare them because they don't understand that aspect of it. So, if it resonates with you, I would say try it, but understand what it is and understand that it's showing you things, and it's not just about tripping out and, getting high. There's a lot more to it than that.
Yeah, we'll definitely talk about that one too,
Yeah. Yeah.
plant medicine. And we'll definitely have you back on talking about how you healed people through that gift that you were given by Jesus.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for having me.
Me too. You have a beautiful day.
You
Thank
too.
you so
Thank you.
much.
Yep.
And I'll see you back again.
Yep. Bye.